We're so excited to be hosting this VA-Palooza today. It's the first one we've ever done, and you are a part of it. So as you know, we have four incredible speakers today, but we are starting with Dr. Julie Durnan from Ginger Desk. Before I pass the baton and let her take things away, I'm just going to let you all know my name is Carrie Scott. I work at Spruce Health. We host webinars monthly, and this one just happens to be on virtual assistants, which is a topic that many of you are very interested in. This session will be recorded, and I know that we're going for 3 hours, so you all have an opportunity to jump in and out as you like. You can also always refer back to the on-demand event once I send that link out later today. Any questions or comments, please use the Q&A. We're going to save some time for that. Otherwise, just sit back and relax and enjoy this session with Julie. I know I'm excited to hear all about it, and I'm going to let her take things away.
Thank you, Carrie, and thank you to Spruce Health. Welcome, everyone. It's so nice to have you here. This is how to hire a virtual assistant. So today I'm speaking about all things VA, not specifically just patient care, though I will delve into that. But I want to talk about all kinds of reasons why you might hire a virtual assistant. Maybe it's that you're hiring a VA for a certain small project, or maybe you're looking for a long-term relationship with a virtual assistant. So I'll speak about all your options and the checklist of what you must have in place before you make your next hire a success. So first of all, welcome. And a little bit about me. I am a naturopathic physician, and for 20 years, I have founded and run efficient integrated clinics, multiple clinics actually. I'm also a wife and a mom of 2 boys who are constantly defying gravity and love to skateboard. And I'm also the CEO and founder of Ginger Desk. So I'm going to tell you just briefly a little bit about Ginger Desk, and then I'll jump into our topics. So we call it the Ginger Way. And at Ginger Desk, we are a team of highly skilled, pre-trained, professional virtual medical office assistants, and we support allied health practitioners all across Canada and the US. We support naturopathic doctors, just like me, chiropractors, physiotherapists. We also work with mental health practitioners and more, functional medical doctors as well. So I'm really happy to be here today. I will tell you a little bit about Ginger Desk toward the end of my presentation. So I do have around 20 minutes to tell you about our hot topic, and then we can jump into what the Ginger Desk opportunity is, and also I'll get to lots of questions too. So I'll be talking about what is a virtual assistant, what the heck does that mean? Because the definition has changed over the past 3 years. How do you know if you need a VA? What can a VA do for you? Where the heck do you find a VA? And our speakers today will be excellent resources for this. What should you expect to pay your VA? And then the checklist I talked about, this is something you can screenshot while I'm talking, and you can capture what are the tasks that you need to get in place before you make that next hire. And then I'll tell you a little bit about how Ginger Desk can support your patient communications. So to jump in, if you are now, excuse me. Number one, what is a virtual assistant? So I want to speak to this first because since 2020, the definition has really changed. So a virtual assistant or a VA is someone who performs administrative duties from their home. That is absolutely the bottom line definition. So typically this refers to someone with organizational skills and a specific skill set that can support you and your business remotely, but they're at home, and you might be remote as well. So you might be traveling in Europe. This can also be a freelancer, or it can be an employee. So just because you've hired a virtual assistant doesn't necessarily mean that they have their own business as a contractor. They might actually be an employee of the company you've hired. And that's certainly how it works with Ginger Desk. And I know that's how it works for some of the other companies speaking today. And this is worth noting because it really will it does change your experience with the VA if they've been a freelancer versus if they've been an employee, because there are different trainings in place, different policies for that person if they're a freelancer versus an employee. So I'm happy to expand on that later in the Q&A if anyone has any questions, but it is really worth noting. Now, the other thing is VAs can differ in terms of the support they offer. So they might be marketing based. They might be a tech-based VA, like I like to call them. They might even be a bookkeeper. They might be an executive assistant. If you, for example, run a clinic, you might be looking for an executive assistant to help you out with managing team meetings and possibly handling some of your personal tasks. Or you might want someone who replaces your front desk, but does so remotely in terms of patient support. Excuse me. And so this is really critical to understand because there are absolutely generalist VAs out there, but the term is often misused and it's really often misunderstood. So just because somebody approaches you and says that they're a VA doesn't necessarily mean that you understand their skill set. So it's really clear to understand what kind of VA you want to hire. And if it's a Jill of all trades VA, that's great too, but just know that you're going to be it will require a little bit more training on your part if they do all of these things. Now, number 4, the evolution of the VA. So before 2020, typically a VA used to mean someone who offers marketing and website support. That was it. That's what a VA did. They did Canva, they jumped in and did your social media. Maybe they did some web programming, some web updates for you. But with the onset of 2020 and with so many allied health practitioners being able to offer their services remotely, this huge opportunity came for, and this huge obstacle came really for the practitioners. And then an opportunity came for businesses like ours to really come in and fill that gap and offer excellent patient support for practitioners who themselves are working remotely. So nowadays, when you meet a VA, you can't really tell just by the title if they're a marketing VA or if they're offering patient support. So again, make sure you ask when you meet a VA. And then I love to mention this, your gatekeeper. Really, this is my personal definition of a virtual assistant. So if your VA is handling communications for you, whether it's your clients or your patients, I like to refer to them as your gatekeeper. And this is something special and that I really see changing the trajectory for the practice of so many health professionals, because I see so many practitioners trying to do their admin on their own, trying to handle their patient communications on their own, and really trying to manage everything that their front desk admin staff would typically do on their own. So with someone as your gatekeeper, you'll find that not only are you free to do other things, but the quality and the quantity of the questions from your patients or clients will actually change as well. Patients will streamline their queries when it has to go through your gatekeeper or through another person. You know, if your patients have direct access to you by email, phone, or text, chances are they're probably going to start asking you clinical questions. I know that as a practitioner, that's just the way it goes. So the addition of a gatekeeper is not just like a linear benefit. It actually really does change the quality of the questions you'll get. They're more direct, they're to the point. I want to change my appointment from Tuesday to Thursday, boom. And it really can up-level the professionalism of your practice and the perception of your practice in general. So please let me know if you have any questions on this and I'll address that after. Now, how do you know if you're ready for a VA? So here are some facts. You're working long hours on a regular basis. So this is especially if a lot of your time is spent doing repetitive or tedious tasks that you don't like possibly responding to social media comments. Maybe you run a Facebook group for your clients or a group program, and you spend a ton of time fielding questions in there. Maybe you're just responding to a lot of text, email, and phone questions about schedule changes. And, this might be that you really need to consider hiring a VA if a lot of your time is spent on these tedious or menial tasks. And I'm talking about more than just a bad week where you got a slew of questions, but actually patterns of these long, tedious hours that are happening regularly for several weeks in a row. Right then and there, it's time to hire someone else so that you can focus your time on revenue generating tasks that really move your business forward. Excuse me. Number 2, you're losing clients or patients because you can't respond to emails in a timely manner. I can't tell you how many times this happens where we'll work with a prospective client and we'll email them and we'll get their email autoresponder back that says, I'll get back to you in the next 72 hours. So if any of you have the 72-hour autoresponder and you're on this call, please raise your hand. This happens all too often. And I will say that's too long for patients to wait for a response in this fast-paced, instant messaging type of world. Patients want at max a few hours of a response time, and 72 hours just won't cut it. By then they've moved on to another clinic. They're trying to find another practitioner to support their needs. Number 3, you're spending your time on lower value tasks. So this is your practice. You should be spending your time adding value to your company in a way that only you can. And you should be looking for someone else to handle that administrative work who has a specific skill set and you can easily delegate to. Your brain, however, is not transferable. So you might be launching a course, writing a book, maybe you're launching a group program, or maybe you just want to see more clients in a day. But generally speaking, if you're spending time scheduling and rescheduling patients, sending out invoices at all, I do suggest it's time to outsource those tasks. And number 4, you're doing work that you don't like. If you enjoy some of those tasks, like the minutia of tasks, if you enjoy updating Canva presentations, if you enjoy emailing patients back, by all means, if they energize you, if they spark ideas that you otherwise wouldn't have had, go ahead, please keep those tasks. But if you don't like those tasks, the problem is that doing those on the daily or on the regular can really lead to burnout. And that can have a terribly negative impact on your productivity and your practice. So I always think of it as like keeping the joy in your life. If you look at what you're doing on a daily basis, and if most of the tasks you're performing, you really enjoy, then you're doing something right. And that's awesome. And for the rest of it, delegate it out. And for goodness sake, do the things that bring you the most joy. And then number 5, my own personal opinion is that you need a VA if you're a health practitioner, period. So there's a certain perception of success or having made it when someone has an assistant. So I suggest that even the newest of practitioners, even new grads, and also back to practice parents who are rebuilding their practice, maybe after a parental leave, it's time to get an assistant. And you might only get an assistant for a certain small amount of tasks. Maybe they only handle your emails, but it's so critical for the perception of professionalism that you do get someone in sooner rather than later. The flip side of this too is that if you get someone in when you aren't busy, it's easier because you have a lot more time to organize yourself and figure out where you want to delegate stuff. And too often at Ginger Desk, we see that practitioners bring on a VA when they're already swamped, and it makes integrating us or anyone into their practice a little bit more difficult because they're hard to reach. So that's my personal opinion, but that is number 5. And now let's move on to what can a VA do? So VAs can do lots and lots of things. And the answer is, it depends. It really depends what kind of VA you're hiring. Like I said before, is it a bookkeeper? Is it marketing? Is it tech support? Or is it patient communications? First of all, get clear on what you'd like them to do and what their area of expertise is. So for example, you might hire a marketing VA who handles some graphic design and strategy, maybe a tech VA to support your funnels. Maybe they're helping you launch a course in the back end, or you might hire a bookkeeper, or you might be a clinic owner, as I said earlier, who needs an executive assistant to help you manage your team. You might hire one person who specializes in one of these areas, or you might like to hire someone who is the Jill of all trades. Now, as I mentioned before, excuse me, if you hire that Jill of all trades, who you think can do Canva and web updates and patient care, remember that's a lot to ask from one person. Those are very varied skill sets, and you will need to be prepared to spend a lot of time training them yourself. Or if you have a general admin manager, you might ask the manager to hire them. In our experience, it takes on average 80 hours to train a new virtual assistant. So that might be a new administrative assistant for your front desk or a VA from afar, but it does take on average 80 hours of your time or your front desk manager's time to train that person. So it's really something to think about when you're looking at what skills they come with when they join your practice. And there really is no one size fits all VA. And this is especially true for VAs who support health practices and who are experts in patient care. So VAs who provide patient care support will provide communication to your patients by email, text, and phone on Spruce. They'll manage all your scheduling needs using an EMR. They'll also organize your life. They'll jump into your Google Drive or your Dropbox. They'll create folders and make accessing your resources so much easier. They might handle your labs. So if you're a functional medical doctor or naturopathic physician or chiro who prescribes labs, your VA can actually write out your lab recs for you, and then they can take over the full workflow for that. So they can bill the patient, track the lab results, ping the patient when the results are in, and get them booked in to review the results. They can do everything for you, so you can just sit back and see more patients. They can handle all the document filing. So anytime a patient sends you slews of information by email, your VA can go in and make sure that they're all uploaded to the file section of your EMR. They can handle all your billing, all your accounts payable, collections. They can make sure that they keep credit cards, expiries up to date so that your practice doesn't miss a beat and gets paid on time every time. They can also handle inventory management. And a lot of people don't think about this, but this is actually something that can be done very easily remotely, which is a surprise to some people. But if your billing is up to date and your items are being tracked appropriately in your EMR or in your billing software, it's actually very easy to keep track of a really accurate inventory count, and then for a VA to go in and order inventory when required. They can also do general admin support like word processing, and they can create an office manual for you. And I'd love to talk more about this in the Q&A if anyone's interested, but getting you set up with a standard operating procedures manual is so critical to really running an efficient, a tightly run practice. And that's something that you could have a virtual assistant help with. They can also support things like this, like Zoom webinars. You could have your VA hop in with you, manage the Q&A and the chat while you're presenting, which is so wonderful from a marketing perspective. So now, where the heck does a practitioner find a VA? So obviously, you can find a VA through Spruce, through any of the companies that are speaking here today. Other suggestions I have are you might call a colleague. Maybe your colleague has a really awesome admin assistant and they're looking for more hours. You might hire a previous MOA who has worked in a clinic prior. And then it's nice because if they use your EMR, they might also already be set up to understand your tech stack. You might look at a freelancer marketplace. So there are a lot of marketplaces out there, like Upwork is one of them. And you can find generalist VAs on there. Again, be prepared that they'll be freelancers and you will be required to provide all the training. And it's not that different from hiring an employee. So it is an option, but there are caveats to the benefits. You could also hire a VA company. And that's an example of all of us here today. We're companies who provide pre-trained medical office assistants who are highly trained, highly managed, and have access to loads of resources behind the scenes. So you know that you're getting the ultimate level of support without having to go through the management and hiring process yourself. So one thing to think of too is where's your VA located? So you might find a VA from the US, but you might also be working with a VA from the Philippines or India. And this might work for you, it might not. So the reason I'm mentioning is that you'll pay less in these countries. So you might pay, for example, HelloRach is a really well-known company from the Philippines, $9 an hour. But the difference is you're required to pay for 40 hours a week and train them. So it is a different setup. So just make sure wherever you look that you look into the small print and figure out all the benefits, because it's not always comparing oranges to oranges. It's apples to oranges quite often. So when you're looking at a US company, or a Canadian company in our case, that they're going to be, the VAs themselves will be located in the same time zone that your patients are located in. So that's really important to a lot of the practices that we work with specifically. They want to make sure that their VA is working in daylight hours and can communicate really effectively with their patients across the same time zone. So something to think about. Location matters. Now, what can you expect to pay a VA? Again, it depends. So it depends on the area they're in. Like I just mentioned, in the Philippines, sure, it might be $9 an hour, but you're required to hire them as full-time at 40 hours a week quite often. It also depends on their skill set and on the expertise in that area. So like I said, you might pay $9 an hour in the Philippines, you might pay $80 an hour in the US, but they might be able to do the tasks you need in quite less time. So it might only take them 15 minutes, whereas it took a few hours for the other company. And I think it's really worth asking people how they bill, how they track their time, because it really does vary. It can be by project, it can be by the hour and by the minute. So for example, at Ginger Desk, we suggest a package of minutes for you that is based on the number of tasks, the task volume you have, and the number of patients you see per week. So it's more by the project with Ginger Desk, and it can end up costing you so much less because you're only paying for the actual time required, and you're not paying for any idle time or any time training or learning the practice. So now this is what everybody always wants us to get to. What are the tasks that you need to get done first in order to set yourself up for success? So please consider these points really carefully before you dive into any new hire. And this will save you loads of time later. I know it's a little bit of work for you, but screenshot this right now and then make sure you tick these off the list as you go forward and hiring your new VA or making a choice on who to hire for your new VA. So number one, list out which tasks you need. So is it billing? Is it scheduling? Is it Canva? List them all out. And then when you're interviewing VAs or when you're considering who to hire, make sure they are actually skilled in those areas. Too many clients of ours, we hear they've hired patients of theirs just because the patients were devoted and they understood their practice. But the truth is, if they don't actually come with a varied skill set, it might not work out for you in the end. Excuse me. So number two, how much time do you need? This is actually a lot harder than practitioners realize. Often, if you're doing your own admin, you're doing tasks between patients on the fly. So it's probably difficult for you to just estimate. But my suggestion is that you get a time tracker. So you could use Toggle app, Timular, Harvest, get a time tracker and actually spend a week tracking your time on admin and see where you truly are, how much and where you're spending your time. You might do this by 15-minute increments just to make it easy on yourself. And, just every few hours, maybe go back and see how much time that was, or just hit the timer every time you start an admin task. If you have in-office staff, VAs integrate beautifully with in-office staff. So you might ask your in-office staff to track how much time they're spending, because then it's really nice for you to figure out who you need to hire to complement what they're doing in their work. And 9 times out of 10, the in-person staff has no idea how much time they spend on scheduling, for example. So it's absolutely worth having them track it. They won't love it, but it's so effective in figuring out your budget and your needs. So your values. Now, this doesn't sound like a big deal, but it's probably, I should have had it listed as number one here because it's actually the most important thing that you figure out before you hire anyone, a company or an independent person. They matter. So take time to think about what are your top 3 personal values. Now, if you're a company or if you're a big clinic, think about what are the top 3 values for your business. What are your core values? If you're a small independent practitioner, your values are going to be your personal values. And as you grow as a business, they'll evolve over time. But for now, they're your personal values. So are they professionalism? trust, efficiency. They might be integrity. It might be resource use. Have a think about what are the top 3 things that matter to you most. And then when you're interviewing VAs or companies, make sure you align on values, because down the road, anyone can do the certain tasks, but you want to make sure that the way they communicate and that the way that they deliver, when there's a problem in communication that comes up, or if there's any issue at all, you want to make sure that you're operating on the same level in terms of values. So this will save you so much money and time in the future. Now, number 4, personality requirements. So this varies by practitioner and discipline. So make a list of what sort of personality traits you expect from your VA, because this is critical in communicating to your new hire or to the new company you hire, so that you're totally not misled, or so that you get what you expect. So for example, we have counselors and psychologists who bring on our VAs, and they want a compassionate, trauma-informed, calm demeanor. Whereas we have functional medical doctors who don't want that at all. They want a type A personality who is hyper-organized and gets stuff done. So that's a very different personality expectations. So when you hire a VA company, don't go assuming that you're going to get a certain style of communication, because it is discipline specific, and it's really worth you requesting that, and a really great company will be able to match you with the perfect match every time. Now, expectations. So what do you expect this person to do, and how will integrating a VA into your practice change your business and life? You need to have a think about this and write this down. What do you expect? Do you expect to bring on more revenue? Do you expect to see more patients? Do you expect to eventually generate a wait list and then to have that managed? Really think about the overall goal and the vision for your practice with this new hire. Get really clear on this, and then make sure you communicate that. So if you expect a VA to jump in and collect and reconcile all the bills that you haven't processed since 2015, make that clear before they jump in and start helping you with communications. Make it clear that actually my expectations were to get caught up on billing for the last 8 years. Done. That's totally something we can do. But just make sure that you explain where the priorities are for you personally, because that matters, and it can make and break a relationship. And then budget. So what do you anticipate this will cost? What can you afford? What are you willing to spend on this? And what is it worth to you in your practice? So if hiring a VA frees up your time so you can generate $10,000 more in revenue per month, it's good for you to know this ahead of time, because it might allow you to hire the best fit for your practice. Maybe it allows you to spend $1,500 or $2,000 a month on someone excellent who can help you bring in revenue that's more like $12,000 a month. So the budget for you shouldn't be considered an expense. It should be considered a return on investment for you. An excellent VA who comes into your practice should not just be another expense for you on your spreadsheet, but they should actually be performing duties that otherwise you don't like. And so that it frees you up to go write your book, get famous, see more patients, do all the things that you should be doing professionally to use your degree. And time zone. I mentioned this earlier in terms of US versus overseas hires, but it's critical that you think about this. What time zone do you want your VA to operate in? Because even if you hire an onshore US-based VA, you might live in Vancouver or California, for example, and operate in Pacific Standard Time, but you actually might see patients early in the morning. Maybe you start seeing patients at 6 a.m. So it might make sense for you to have an EST VA. So they might be operating out of Eastern Standard Time, so that 9 a.m. their time, they're checking in with your first patient, making sure everything for your day is on track. So really think about what's the time zone you want them to work in? When do you want your patients to hear back from them? And that will really dictate who you hire and where. And then what is your tech stack? So when I say tech stack, I mean, what are your electronic systems or softwares that you're using? So do you need a VA to understand your EMR, to set up your EMR? Maybe you're transitioning from paper to Jane, for example. Or are you ready to let your VA jump into your email as it stands? Or do you need to set up a new email account for them that is hello at, admin at, or info at, so that you can separate your personal email from the front-facing administration email? So this might be something you need to do before you bring your VA on so that they've got their email on day one. And then time. So how much time do you have and do you want to spend on getting your VA ready? This is really critical because, like I said before, if you hire that freelancer or you hire the MOA colleague of yours, you're going to be spending on average 80 hours getting them ready to jump into your practice, or your office manager is going to be spending that 80 hours. So either way, you're going to pay for that, versus hiring a company like any of those here today, where they come already trained and ready to go. Workflow preferences. This is something that a really great company will already have in place for you to make suggestions for how the workflow goes. But if it's something you really want to have a hand in, or you have a very specific way and order that you want tasks delivered, it's worth mapping this out so that you can communicate that on your first kickoff call with your VA. It's nice for you to know, if you're doing some telehealth consults and you want a VA, excuse me, and you want the VA to email every patient before that consult, or you want to make sure that their intake form is in 48 hours prior to that consult. This needs to be explicitly explained in your SOP for the workflow for the initial visit. And that's worth figuring out before you launch. Number 12, caught up on billings. So do you have projects or tasks from many months ago that aren't complete? Try to complete them, or at least be really clear with your VA on expectations for when you expect your practice to get up to date with certain things. Like the billing I mentioned before from 2015. We've seen that happen. That's actually a real live story. But if you do want us to get caught up, or you want your VA to get caught up on stuff, it's usually easiest that your practice gets caught up before you get started. If you want the VA to get caught up on that, then that should become their priority before they launch into the more day-to-day stuff. And then lastly, do you have an SOP, a standard operating procedures manual, or an office manual? This is critical in explaining to your VA before you get started. So VAs love when you've got an office manual, but 99% of practitioners don't have this. So don't be embarrassed. There's no shame in not having an office manual. That's why you're looking for a VA, so that we can do these kind of things for you. But it's worth expressing to the VA you hire that you do or don't have one. Because if you have one, great, they can just jump in, follow suit, and then they can update it as they go. If you don't have one, it's good for them to know right off the bat so that they can begin building that out as they're learning your practice. It's such a beautiful time to start building that out when you hire your first VA. Okay, so here are the questions. So what to ask your VA. I'm going to whiz through these, but if you want to just take a screenshot of these are some helpful questions to ask your VA or VA company or freelancer company before you hire them. Who will be supporting me? Will it be one or more people? So a lot of those overseas companies come with a VA pod, or a group of VAs who all work together. And for some practitioners, they don't like that. They want that one dedicated person who's there to get to know, love, and trust their patients. So with Ginger Desk, for example, we match you to one dedicated VA that you and your patients get to know really well. So ask the company, how many people are going to be supporting my patients day to day? You also want to know, what's my VA's experience supporting my health discipline? So not just health practitioners, but my discipline. So if you're a chiro, you want to know if they've worked with chiros in the past. This is really important. And when is my VA available during the day? So, and then this leads us into number 4, what is their response time? So it might be that your VA is only available Tuesdays and Thursdays. And this is really good for you to know going in, because if you expect your VA to get back to patients daily, within a 4-hour response time, which is what we promise at Ginger Desk, then that you're really going to be let down if they only work certain days a week. So really get clear on when they're available and what their response time is. Ask what their training and experience is. You don't just want that jack of all trades, Jill of all trades, stepping in cold with no prior medical office assistant experience. So find out what the training was that they went through and what their experience is specifically. And how are they managed if it's applicable? So if you hire a company that has VAs as employees, you want to know, how are their progress reviews performed and how are they taken care of in the back end? These things matter because they matter to employee retention and then consistency in your practice. And how do they track their time? So are they just tracking it randomly on their iPhone, or do they have a really legitimate software that they're using that you can see as you go? How do they communicate with me? And how often is the next question to ask. So number 8, how do they communicate? Are they texting? Are you having video meetings? Are you just emailing back and forth? Are you communicating within the EMR itself? Really get clear on how you can expect to communicate tasks with your VA. And where are they located? Are they onshore? Are they offshore? And which time zone? What happens if they get sick, they have a baby, go on parental leave, or they even just go on vacation, which everybody is entitled to do? Is there somebody else who can jump in at a moment's notice and take over the practice? So at Ginger Desk, we have a no downtime policy, and we always have another VA who's able to step in and cover the VA who's on leave. And what is the onboarding process? So how are they going to understand your specific nuances of your practice? This really matters. Which EMRs are they trained in? So this goes back to the tech stack I mentioned before. If you're using Charm, EHR, for example, you want to make sure that your VA already knows Charm. Otherwise, you're going to spend hours and hours making sure they get the adequate training. And how is their grammar and spelling? So if you've got a VA who is responsible for all your patient communications, you want to make sure that it is the most professional display of communication possible, and their grammar and spelling should be impeccable. And the next question here is, does my VA have a quiet, dedicated workspace? So you don't want your VA on a call with your patients from their car. You don't want them calling from their backyard where the Wi-Fi is spotty. You want them in an office that appears very professional, just like it would do at your front desk. And which tasks can my VA support? So again, make sure you're asking these questions. If you hire a patient care coordinator VA and you really want them to do Canva, you need to make that really clear and find out if that's a possibility. And then please describe a typical day for my VA supporting my practice. So ask them what it's going to look like. So say, listen, I have patients 9 to 5. What's my day going to look like with my VA? Where are they going to be touching in with me? What are the touch points with the patients? And really find out how that flow is going to go for the day. So make sure you got a picture of that. And now I want to tell you a little bit about Ginger Desk. So please meet Ginger. We call it the Ginger Way, and we hire, train, and manage conventional medical office assistants to work within our tech-enabled platform, supporting allied health practitioners all across Canada and the US. So we match you to one dedicated VA. We are health practitioner focused. Like I said, we work with NDs, MDs, specifically functional medical doctors in private practice, physios, chiros. We do support mental health practitioners as well, but we work with speech language pathologists, anyone who considers themselves an allied health practitioner. We come trained in your EMR, so specifically Jane Charm and Practice Better. We operate across all time zones across North America, and we're available 8:30 to 5:30 in your time zone. And we bill by the minute, so we're accessible to all practitioners, from solo small scale practices all the way up to large multi-practitioner clinics with in-house staff. We also have something called Ginger University. It's a 100-hour automated training program that we put all of our new hire virtual assistants through before we're able to match them successfully with a practitioner. So they need to successfully graduate from Ginger University. They go through extensive shadowing with our shadow experts here at Ginger, and they learn your EMRs. They go through HIPAA and PIPETA certification. They are experts in Google Workspace, We're constantly testing and assessing their grammar and their spelling and their writing in general. And we give our VAs access to extensive health admin resources. So lots of letters and scripts and anything you might need for your patients. We've got that at our VA's fingertips. And you know what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just jump into the benefits of Ginger, and then I'd love to take some questions. So just to summarize here, we offer pre-trained industry VAs. We onboard really quickly, and practitioners love this about us. From the moment a practitioner signs an agreement with us, we can get them into our onboarding team within 48 hours and ready to start. We also promise an A+ fit guarantee, and that's thanks to our Ginger Way matching methodology. We find the perfect match VA every time, and we cost 1/4 of what it typically costs to hire, train, and manage conventional medical office staff. We have a buddy program, so we offer no downtime. When your VA is away on parental leave or on vacation, we have another VA ready to step in so the practice doesn't miss a beat. And we're ready to scale with you. So if you have a plan to bring on new associates and really grow your practice, we can grow with you. Similarly, if you're ready to go on vacation and you just want to shrink your practice for a certain amount of time, we're happy to reduce our services as well to accommodate that. So we're here no matter what the level. So thank you, everyone. I'm going to skip over these and I'll come back to them if we have more time, but I'd love to take some questions. So thank you for listening. This was so great.
I love it. Julie, that was
Carrie.
cool. I learned so much. That was incredible. And because I know we only have a couple minutes, I'm going to just serve up a couple questions that came in.
Awesome.
So this came in earlier in your presentation. Tamara's asking, how would your recommendations differ for someone who runs a tiny practice? I see patients only 6 hours a week, around 7 to 8 patients a week. And there's lots of time on the summaries I write to each patient, et cetera.
Amazing. So we have 3 different levels of packages, and this practitioner would fall into our smallest package called the Builder. And it's there to serve 5 to 10 patients a week. So she's a perfect fit for the Builder package. Okay. We would still jump into her practice 2 to 3 times a day to support those patients, but we would probably suggest she just used us in a small level, and it would cost around $600 a month for that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I'm going to rush through these because we've got about 2 minutes.
Awesome.
The next question is, document filing and inventory are physical items. Items need to be hand counted to cross-check. How can a VA do this remotely?
Well, the VA can't count physical items. Absolutely. But we do manage inventory remotely really well by looking what's been tracked in the EMR or in QuickBooks, and then knowing what to order from there. There will have to be a physical staff member or practitioner there to unpack the boxes and load them on the shelf.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah. Here's a good one. How do you address HIPAA compliance with staff that's located outside the US?
Because we're in Canada, or do you mean overseas?
I'm thinking because you're in Canada.
Yeah, in Canada, it's not a problem at all. We're HIPAA compliant in Canada, but the problem definitely arises if you're dealing with somebody outside North America.
Okay, perfect. Tara's asking, what if we don't have those 3 EMRs you mentioned? I would imagine if I answered for you, it would just mean more training on the part of the VA, yes?
No, unfortunately, those are the only EMRs we're supporting at this time. We've really chosen to specialize in Jane, Charm, and Practice Better. And we don't accept clients who use outside EMRs.
Okay.
So if they wanted to consider choosing to use one of those EMRs, we can help with the transition and the setup.
Okay. All right. Perfect. There were a couple other questions that came in, but folks, we have our next speaker joining. So I encourage you to reach out to hello@gingerdesk.com. I know a member of the team will get back to you straight away. And remember too, that I will make these slides and this recording available to folks. So if you had any questions, there was someone who wanted to know about the time trackers you mentioned. Can you put the other slides up? Yes, you'll get to see all of that later on when I send that out in an email. So do not fret. A big thank you to Dr. Durnan. Incredible content, really
Thanks,
good.
Carrie.
And so grateful that you were here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too. All right. I see Mike is on. Where'd you go, Mike? There you go.
I'm sorry. I I hope I could live up to what she did before. I mean, that's
You're going to be just fine. I know it. Where is your partner in crime? Where is Mr. Bush?
oh, Mr. Bush should be here any second. It is now 12:46 and he is late. I
No
guess
worries.
I will have to.
He popped in earlier. We're all good. Well, while we have this time together, why don't you just quickly introduce yourself to the folks on the call, and then we'll let you take it away.
Sure, absolutely. Hi, everybody. Thank you, Carrie and Jessica, and everyone at Spruce for including me in such a great informational session. What a perfect outlet to get some questions answered, and kudos for you guys taking this on. My name is Mike Yablonowitz, as you saw on Zoom. I'm the president and CEO of BBC Global Services. BBC Global Services is a New Jersey-based HIPAA-compliant boutique outsourcing firm. We have offices in the Philippines, 2 offices in the Philippines, India, Mexico, and here in New Jersey. I guess we can get started. Let me see if I can get I don't know where.
Yeah, I'm looking to see if I heard from Nathan.
I'm sorry, buddy.
No, you know what? It actually could be my fault. Let's see if I accidentally booted him out when he joined before.
Have you met him? Most people do. I totally appreciate it.
Let's see. We'll get him on.
All right.
I'm going to send him another invite just in case.
Okay.
And then he should be able to get on there. If not, God forbid.
I know.
Let's see. Maybe I can promote him if he's there as an attendee. Let's find him real quick.
Should I tell him you sent him another invite? And if not, then I can bring up the slides. I think they're somewhere.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not seeing him. Well, this is part of having live events, and it's exciting.
Yes.
In real time.
I know. Yes, we got another invite. And if not, then people are just going to hear my wonderful voice without any
well, how about I pepper you with a couple questions, because you and I have chatted, and I've always appreciated your unique take on this space. Why don't you tell me what it is that BBC Global does and how you got started?
How I got started? Well, we provide, like I said, outsourced staffing. I got started in the good old days of the 2000s. I owned a web hosting company. Tried to compete 24/7 support with small companies like GoDaddy, and I don't know if I couldn't afford it or I didn't want to pay for any more staff, but I had a friend of mine that said, "Hey, have you tried outsourcing? If you put together a good team and you get some really good questions and answered, and you really manage it, and you leave no stone unturned, they can really help you go 24/7 with limited cost and really mitigating like all of your exposure to employees and what have you." And because of that, I set up a 10 questions, the 10 top questions that people had as web hosting customers. And we did some questions and answers and some ticketing and emails. And we were really able to provide 24/7 service in a cost-effective manner. And it was that point I knew that this was something that was really good to augment an existing staff in the years to come. And this is in 2000 when, guys, there was no Slack, there was no Skype, there was just weird calls at weird times of the night trying to kind of blend culture, which is, it's hard now, and we have all this technology. We have offices all over the world, India, the Philippines, and just making sure everybody talks efficiently is a full-time job. Now think about it, Carrie, you have people that they can't see them. You don't really know who they are. It's your middle of the night. It's their middle of the night. You're trying to communicate. It was tough. Yeah. But the one thing that I learned, and it's kind of built my entire company, is if you give specific questions, specific answers, and really have key KPIs, you make it idiot proof. Yeah. And therefore it can work. And that's kind of what I've been doing, since then. Once I sold the business, I became consulting for people. Yeah. And I've really able to show people how to kind of augment their staff in a cost-effective manner. Yeah. And it just became a passion.
Well, I was
Is
going to
is
say, so now you mentioned that you have offices in other countries, and we had a question
Mhm.
come up a little bit earlier about HIPAA compliance.
Uh,
I know that you have something in place to ensure that, but maybe you can tell us about it.
really, I took the easy way out. Now, when I first started getting into servicing clinicians and doctors, I knew that HIPAA was a huge piece that I had to manage because it's a big deal. It's an ever evolving compliance, and it is something that everybody looks at whenever they're looking to outsource.
Mhm.
The doctor, the clinician, as well as us, the people that have to support it. So knowing that that's not my expertise, I employed a third-party company as an audit slash consulting firm called Digital Compliance.
Mhm.
And they are there to make sure we're doing all the right stuff,
Mhm.
audit us, answer any of our questions that we have related to this ever-changing compliance. And they even get on the phone with some of our clients to answer questions that they may have, they may want another take on it because it is a very important thing.
Got
So
it.
that's the only way I was even felt comfortable going from, what we started out with BBC is customer service, help desk, that sort of stuff, to even get involved in the clinician space is because I felt comfortable that we can competently support this. And it's because of digital compliance that we feel comfortable that we're constantly doing the right stuff at all times.
Got it. Okay. That's interesting. And I know too that by leveraging resources in other countries, you've mentioned to me before, you're able to kind of keep the costs down. Can you tell us a little bit about that and also how your model works? Is it project based? Is it minute based? And what is a typical use case for you?
So it's FTE based, like full-time employee.
Okay.
Um, we do very little part-time employee. We definitely don't do anything. We don't do any part-time employees within the HIPAA, the clinician space. That's not to say that you can't do that. People do that all the time. But
Mhm.
for us, from a compliance standpoint, I didn't want to take any risk of any bleeding because when you do part-time, there could be sharing of information, all that sort of stuff. So we do it strictly on an FTE model, on one FTE model per clinician or more than one.
Okay.
Um,
And
and
you had
that's kind of
talked
how
to
we do it.
me, yeah, and you had talked to me before too about always having a backup in place. Is that right? So,
Yeah.
like, if that full-time employee who knows your business well
Mhm.
is ill or has, takes a vacation,
Right. Right.
tell us about what measures you have in place for consistency without any hiccups.
Well, I guess you're doing my entire slides. This is
I
much better.
am,
It's much more
sir.
fun.
I
It's
have
much
this
more fun.
down.
I don't think I paid you enough for this type of support. No, actually, it's kind of a few. It's kind of a 2 or 3 pronged approach. The biggest reason why people come to us, right, is continuity.
Mhm.
A lot of these clinicians are just seeking someone to answer the phone, right, on a consistent basis, to be there on time, to do the tasks, and to just make their jobs easier. A lot of the doctors and clinicians we work with just want to spend their time in patient care,
Mhm.
and it's not even so much that they don't have staff; they just need more staff to augment their practice, right?
Mhm.
And then finding people now is a little bit more challenging, right? So if you can, outsource those task-based roles, then it
Mhm.
makes it makes absolute sense. So, but continuity is a key. So to manage that, we do that in a few ways. The first way is we do have something we call campaign assistance,
Mhm.
where as much as the doctor or clinician will choose the staff that they want to bring on as the staff that they want to bring on, we also have other people that have similar qualities that can back them up in case they're out or
Mhm.
something like that.
Okay.
That's all included in the fees. But in addition to that, it's more about not just the continuity when it comes to the people, it's when it comes to the entire setup, right? So our model is, and it's just the way that we do it, is that all of our healthcare HIPAA VAs are in our controlled office
Mhm.
in either Davao or Cebu in the Philippines. We
Okay.
have it in our office. No one works from home. Just for us, this is the way I want to do it. There's people do it a lot of different ways.
Mhm.
And because of that, we know that it's our offices, right? So continuity is not just people coming to work, not just having multiple people working in case someone is out and sick. It's
Mhm.
really making sure that the lights are on, right? That there are multiple internet services to mitigate any downtime. Those are the two biggest things that you kind of look at as well. So, and then also just from a HIPAA compliance standpoint, we have managers that are there that making sure that people are behaving in a compliant manner. So all of those things together ensure continuity for the doctor and the clinician. It's the combination of having multiple people knowing your stuff so you don't stop, and then knowing that they're in a place that has continuity and within technology, so you don't really miss a beat. And any downtime that we have, which is very negligible, is really small. I think, and I get real stats. I think last year we had 99.8% uptime. So that's, I think I kind of answered the question a little bit differently, but it's just a combined effort.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful. In our last session, someone had asked, what if I have a teeny tiny practice and I only have 7 or 8 patients, and is there a too small for your service? Is there a too big for your service? Do you have a sweet spot? How does that work?
No, my joke is just you can't cut anybody in half. So we have one person is our minimum, the 1 FTE is our minimum. And with that being said, it's funny, a lot of times people come in and they say, well, I don't know if I could fill up a full-time staff, right? That's understandable.
Yeah.
Excuse me. What we'll do for those people is actually help them and work with them to find things within their practice they didn't really know, could be outsourced. So and again, we're all looking for efficiency here, people. Like, we understand that, but 9 times out of 10, we're able to consult in a way that, can let them even be able to do more than they originally felt, that they could do after kind of just going through an onboarding call with us or defining what I would call a statement of work. So that's really kind of the biggest thing there is when it comes to, there's only one, you have minimum of 1 person, but we can usually work towards finding out how that would work.
Okay. That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Are you worried about where your slides went? I think it's because Nathan doesn't have access. Do you happen to have those available, or do you want me to share? I think we have them actually.
Oh, really?
Oh,
I don't
think this might work. All right.
I don't know. I probably did my entire shtick right now. So let's see. No.
Let's see. Because I don't want to not have you get to present
no.
all the
I
things
think it's
had in store for us. All right. I think I actually may have this. Let's see if we can get that going. Hang on one second.
Okay. And I think he actually I don't know what's going on here.
All right. I'm going to just open this up, and then you and I are going to take this away. I feel like I can be your co-pilot from here on out.
I know. I don't.
Here we go. I'm opening it up. Let me see here. I am going to put this in present mode. All right. How do we feel about that? Good?
Sure. Let's see.
Yeah. Okay.
Where? Well, I'm saying within this, it's either I'm going to go off ad hoc or I'm going to go on the presentation. But I think if we're going to do this, we can go.
You can
I don't know. Let's go to slide. Let's go to slide 4. Let's go to slide 4.
All right.
How
And
about that?
I want everyone to please ignore those 100,000 little tiny tabs at the top of my screen. We're going to just ignore that. And hopefully you can all see the presentation, but let me know if you can't. All right, here we go. All right. So you want to go to slide 4?
Sure. Yeah, slide 4.
Okay. Let's see here.
Let me see if I can. He said he could.
Oh, what a curious view we have. All right.
Okay.
That's okay. You tell me when to stop. You tell me when to stop.
No, I think you have to download into PowerPoint. This is an absolute. This is everybody. This is not the way we manage our call center. I'll tell you that much.
You know what? It's okay. I have another thing we can share. Let's share the PowerPoint. Hold, please. We have a very accommodating audience today.
I can.
Of course. Now, I think you can see this.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
Of course. Let's just give us a better view, right? We want, what do we want? I haven't been in PowerPoint in so
I
long.
know.
Is
Carrie,
it-
I actually sent you another email that you said you could try to send it to, but I could just vamp. So
How
let's
about,
just
yeah, we'll
let's
stick
ju-
with
let's
this.
just vamp.
Let's just talk. Here we go.
Okay. All right. So
Here we go, sir. I'm
So-
gonna go to slide 4. You got this.
okay.
Okay.
Okay. Slide 4. All
Yeah.
right. So let's just go with it. So what this all is like a truly organized deep dive into what the challenges that brought a prospect to us in the first place. So the question really is why did they come? I said before that this is much more complicated than simply what someone wants. So with that said is that when people come to us in the first place, they usually say, like I said before, I need someone just to answer the phone. I just need someone that'll come in and answer the phone. That's all I need.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, just to let you know that's just part of it, right? And I understand that's the want, but that's not really that's the need, but it's not really what we need to get. So what our job is to really find out how we could do that most effectively. So like, for example, like you talk about like the what's, right? Like, what are they answering? Like, is the staff buried with like verification of benefits? Are they struggling with, with dealing with appointment reschedules while trying to check people in person, right? Do they have the time to truly manage a proper confirmation schedule to ensure, that the people show up to the appointments and they don't, and they mitigate the downtime in a doctor's schedule? That's
Mhm.
like the what, and then like when do these calls come in? And I'm just talking about calls. Just give me an example. When do the calls come in? What are the number of calls that come in? What type of calls are they? And what is the average handle time of the call? So in order for us to do our job effectively and efficiently for the clinician, we look at that information to not only find out how many reps to staff, right, but when to staff them. And it's very important to get that information. And and it's pivotal, and it's how we actually build these. And many offices like would provide us telco reports and appointment information. We ask for that stuff. So we can actually, because a lot of the offices don't know how many calls they get, what they know, what kind of calls they get, but they don't know how many of them, or then when they come in, and all that sort of stuff. So as a part, I say free of charge, but it's really a way for us to make sure we're doing the best work for the clinician, right? The more information we get, the more we can support them. So
Yeah.
we get that, we do a schedule, we put together what we feel a schedule could be based on the threshold for stress and the SLA. So when we talk about the SLA, which is a service level agreement, it's the amount of, in this case, calls, right, that a clinician feels is appropriate, right? So for example, is it appropriate to have someone sit on hold for 30 minutes?
Right.
Or do they want them only to stay on hold for a minute? That's a staffing level. The next thing we looked at is when are the calls coming in, right? When are they coming in? And then are they okay with having, let's say, the verification of the benefits to be done within a 24-hour period or within that same minute? All of these variables go into how many staff that they need and when they need them staffed. And that's a big part of more than just like, I just need someone to get on the phone. We also want to kind of help them find out when and how many people to do what they need to do. In addition, a big thing is like is looking for the person is their threshold for stress. So some people have, when we interview people, it's more than just finding like that they have the skills, because you can find everybody that a lot of people have skills to verify benefits, appointments, and that sort of stuff. It's really sometimes it's these soft skills, like what I mentioned before. Will they crack under pressure? So a lot of the reason why we do these reports is we find out that, and a clinician may say, oh, we have a medium-sized office, we have a small office, we have a large office. It's really important for us to know what it is, so that when we look for that staff member, we make sure that they can properly accommodate the request. Like really quickly, we had a client that, and we've been known to not follow the rules, especially back in the day. And we had a client that came in and said, you know what, I just need people to do verification of benefits. Simple, right? And it's not a hard thing. It's time consuming, but not a hard thing. So we found them people that could verify benefits, and they met these people. We'll talk about in a second. They thought they were great. We brought on 2 of them. Wonderful. They went live, Carrie. and these people sunk. They
Oh,
could do the work, but they couldn't live up to 100 to 200 verifications a day.
oh gosh.
And
Yeah.
also what happens when you're dealing with these offices is you have to realize the reason why they're hiring you, right, is because they have no time. It's so
Well,
they
that's
don't
right.
have time, right?
Yeah.
They don't have time to like be teaching people how to be better. So every time that we would go off this path of proper diligence, it always ends up in a little bit of it ends up in a pickle, because there's a lot of these things that are important in order to make things work.
Question for Mike. Dr.
Yeah.
Durnan shared on the last presentation that they're really focused on 3 EMRs, for instance.
Mhm. Yeah.
Do your VAs have that same sort of like, is it trained on these systems, or are they open to learning? Because I know when we talked about that PT that you support,
Mhm.
I think your VAs can come in and sort of learn whatever legacy systems
Yeah.
are in place, but correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, and yeah, absolutely. So part of what we do when it comes to training is we have, for lack of a better term, a week training that we do before. So really, at the end of the day, there's some basic things that we have that with each clinician has, like they have an EMR, they have a phone system, and all of these basic things that we find out that we need to be able to manage it. We make sure that the agent has those skills before, right?
Okay.
That's a big thing.
Yeah.
And then we really leave the training of the clinician office really regarding culture and the soft skills. But yes, we make sure that if that they know the EMR that the doctor is using. And the good thing is that a lot of, not all, but a lot of practices use the same if they're the same type of
Right.
specialty.
But you're
So
cross specialty, right? It sounds like you guys
yeah.
support just about any practice. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yeah. The smaller SMB practice, yes, we support many of them, and again, it's really just finding, like I said before, we just make sure that first week of training that these agents, really understand, what they need to do in order to support that office before they go into the office, and
Right.
then learn the culture from the company.
Right. And the culture,
and
that's an interesting one, Mike, because like we were talking about earlier, would you say that folks come to you and say, look, this is what my office is like, and I need someone who can be okay with that. I need them to be, type A, high energy, or I need them to be really easygoing to handle the kinds of calls we get. I mean, do you get those sorts of like specificity, like that kind of request?
yeah, I'm gonna mess up this entire presentation, but that is 60% of what we do in mating a person to a clinician's office.
Okay, so it's like
Carrie,
you have to make
Carrie,
sure
it's more about finding someone that can verify benefits, that has experience, that has everything. You can find that.
right.
Really understanding the culture of the clinician's office is the biggest part into making sure it's going to work or not. We spend a lot of time speaking with the doctors, and not even the doctors. We speak more with the office staff because a lot of times, not all the times, don't get mad at me, they're the ones that are kind of running the day-to-day operations because the doctor wants to spend the time in patient care. Right. So we work so hard in getting the buy-in from those people because we know if they don't accept what's going on here, that rep will have zero chance to succeed. Whether they're the best technical worker or the worst, if there's not a proper buy-in from the staff, we're hitting a roadblock. So as part of this, not only do we have we have the clinician meet and greet the people beforehand, but we really try to, and it happens 9 times out of 10, we really try to work with the office staff in order to make sure they understand what we're doing and they understand what our goal is. Right. Because it's not even the fact that they're upset for bringing in other people. There's also a misnomer that occurs sometimes too, that, oh, they're bringing in an outsourced company to get rid of our jobs.
Well, right. So, I would imagine there is some of
all
that.
The time, Carrie. So we really have to make sure that the office staff is comfortable and knows that we're here as an augmentation and not as a replacement. So that's why I'm saying like 40% is getting the right person to do the right task. 60% is positioning them right and getting a buy-in from the office staff.
Yeah.
It's just a huge team thing.
Yeah.
And and there's also a lot of, going back to the soft skills too. We're talking about accents. I know no one likes to talk about that, right?
Well,
But part of finding the right person for a clinic's office is identifying what works for their area
yeah.
and their population. And I'm not being ethnocentric, it's just the name of the game, right? So, what a patient expects, and it's really the patient expects to talk to in the Carolinas may be different than in California.
Sure.
Or if, say, less than that, say you run a geriatrics clinic.
Yeah.
If you don't have somebody on the end of that phone that speaks clear, concisely, neutral, and has patience, it's not going to work out.
Yeah.
So that is something that we have with every client. It's not an easy conversation to have because people think it's not the right thing to do, but it's all part of it. And it's a huge piece.
Yeah. Well, that makes a lot of sense to me. When folks reach out to you, what's that look like? I mean, in terms of how quickly can you onboard? Well, how quickly, I guess, do you identify their needs and then come up with a plan to meet them? And because I imagine you probably get some folks calling saying, oh my gosh, we're coming into the holidays, I'm panicking. Can I get somebody, next week? And how quickly could you do that and have a VA sort of boned up on their business?
So the answer is, we can have someone up and running within 2 weeks.
Okay.
Sometimes it's quicker, but that's usually what I like to say to be realistic.
Yeah.
Again, we staff internally due to my choice, due to my comfort with HIPAA compliance and what I understand.
Mhm.
So we have a pool that doesn't allow us to go out all over the Philippines and find people. So it's not like we can have 500 people on day one, but we're getting people staffed now within a week. So it's a quicker process. The biggest, and again, I'm going to say this is very important, is that the hardest part is really identifying the proper statement of work. We spend a lot of time on that.
Right.
We spend a lot of time on, and you know what? Can you go to? I think I think
Let's do
slide
it.
eight is, and I don't know if it is
What?
a report. I just want to bring up 8 just to show you.
Sure.
Slide 8 is a report. So, like I was saying, identifying, really the soft skills, what the clinician really has, right? What they need help with, what the makeup is within all the players at the clinic, at the office, and based on that, we can really find the right person. And another thing that is a big part, and is how I would say is really the reason why we have the success that we have, and what I implore everybody to do in their clinics, if they're not doing it now, is create KPIs and metrics.
Yeah. Well,
It's a really hard thing to do, Carrie, especially for a big office that's running, or an office that's running and very busy, and they're just trying to put it all together. But that's what we do in the beginning before we take on anything. And it's a huge piece, because it really allows us not only to ensure that the people are doing the job, the duties that they're supposed to do, but in a proper time frame, right? And it allows everybody to be on the same page as to what that person is supposed to do.
Yeah.
Now, this isn't, and we would identify it, right? Sometimes we identify it. We will, if the clinician's office doesn't know it, right? We'll usually identify it by looking at the telco records and the appointments, and we can kind of do a best guess to kind of help things out. Or sometimes people are like, clients are like, doctors are like, I appreciate this. Here are the duties you really want to happen, right? Let's figure it out together. And we're okay with that, as long as they understand that it's something we have to do, because without that, it doesn't allow us to be the partner that they're looking for. Because without reports, not only can we not know what the people are actually doing, right? But how do we know when we need to increase staff or reduce staff, or say that there's a change in the skin, in when the patients are coming in? We'll see that by looking at the data, right? And we'll be able to staff accordingly. So in order for us to be the partner that they really need, we have to provide KPIs and see that reporting. It's essential, and
Yeah.
it is hard. You know, it is hard to do.
Is it,
But we
and
have
so
to get it
is it
done.
collaborative then? Do you give them a worksheet or some sort of guidance with respect to, here are some common KPIs, we can work against these? How does that work?
We we did it in the beginning, right? But based on the dynamic part and the lack of time that a lot of people have, we do send stuff like that, but we really gather that in the onboarding call where we go over the statement of work that we identified in sales, and we actually get all that information at that point, whatever they have.
Got it.
So that's the way, a lot of the way that we do it. But it is a really important way for us to really be able to identify the work that they're doing and how we're supposed to measure it. And lastly, with that, it doesn't mean that there's no flexibility, right? It's not that, because a lot of times that things change. But if something's going to change, we identify it, we put a number on it, and we say, hey, what do you think of this? So it's just important to know that that's a big part in order to ensure that we're doing the work that's needed to be done in the way that it's needed to be done.
That makes sense. So the metrics that you have here, are these metrics that are shared with your client, or is this just for your own learning?
No, these metrics get sent out to the team leader, because the way it's set up is there's a team leader that manages the campaign.
Okay.
They get sent to client success. Those are the people, the Northerners, that actually make sure things are going right, along with the team leaders in the local offices.
Yeah.
They get sent to me. They get sent to my VP of operations.
Okay.
And they get sent to the client, because this allows us to be proactive when it comes to managing a campaign and not reactive. Because again, if you don't do it that way, and I've seen this, it's happened to me, you know, people don't, the doctors don't know, or even the doctors don't know until there's a problem. And that's what we want to stop. We had one example with that is we had a client, you know, a little while ago, where it was a referral, and you know, and he said, look, I just need the people to answer the phone. We went over the whole statements and all this stuff, and he said that, you know what, I don't necessarily need to get the numbers, right? And he didn't want to give me the telco reports, which doesn't happen very often. And we did it for a while. We created our own reports, right? That's how we did it, like based on what we were getting. And he was like peppering our staff, saying, you're not answering enough calls, and you're not verifying all the benefits, and you're not, you know, and you're not confirming the appointments. There's nothing wrong with him. He just knew that they weren't there.
Right.
Finally, I said to him, this isn't working for you. It's for the doctor, right? It's for them. It's not for me.
Yeah.
The byproduct is I get paid a fee, but this is supposed to help him, like not make him more stressed.
Yeah.
I said, just send me a month's worth of data. Let me look through it. Let me see what's going on. Well, lo and behold, the phone system wasn't set up right, and the calls were going to the office staff first and not to us first.
Oh.
Second of all, for one reason or another, and we don't know to this day, the confirmations weren't being sent to us either. So he was like, and he made some and then, you know, the office staff was a little bit miffed, but you know, we got everything together. We spent some time, as I say, politically, you know, working with them, and they wound up really liking us. We're all happy. And then like a couple months later, there was 2 more reps that went on. But that's just what I said. If we ever skirt the system, like I said about that other clinic, right? It never winds up working in the favor of us or the doctor.
Well, that makes sense. And having this sort of data is, I would imagine, critical to success. And so the fact that you didn't have access to it and couldn't have addressed those things sooner is unfortunate. But I would imagine too, that for some folks that come in, they're probably nervous about the spend, and they're probably trying to figure out, like, is this going to be worth it? What's the return on my investment here?
Right.
And this right here at a glance shows me, okay, I'm definitely getting my money's worth in some way, right? Is there some hand-holding there? Do you help folks see how this equates to, you know, money saved or time saved, or both ultimately?
100%. You have to do that with this I say you have to do it in this space
Yeah.
because again, it's all part of, there's like, okay, there's a side of the business of outsourcing where you just place people and you say, here you go, here's your person, knock it out, right? This sort of business is what I consider consulting to outsourcing, right? It's different because in order for it to be successful, you have to really help these offices see not only that they, of course, they need the phones answered, that's what the company does, but make sure that we're able to help them in the best way as possible as they're working.
Yeah.
A lot of these reports and a lot of these reports, allow them to see, because we're getting all the data, right, Carrie? So allow the doctors and clinicians to see for the first time, what's happening from an administrative standpoint in their office. And they have sometimes, incorporated our, KPIs and metrics, globally.
Sure.
So at the very least, it's a way for them to even see, things in their business that they never did before. But that's really where we come. That's where our value is, Carrie. It's really just being able to help them, not just giving them a person, but help them get what they need, which is a lot harder than just, I need someone to answer the phone. It's, all the other things we're just talking about.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. We just had a question come in, and this is one that I'm curious about too. Do folks get to choose their own virtual assistant, or are they assigned someone? I'm sort of in my head picturing it like the dating game, like you offer up these choices and I get to choose. How does that work?
That's exactly it.
Is that it?
We do it a little differently because we know, again, it comes down to the time that these people have, right? It's so limited. So what we do is we find the people that we think are good based on all this diligence, right? And then we say, hey, Dr. Smith, here are 5 people that we think would be great. And we send them the interview, we send them a writing sample, we send them a resume, and we send them anything else that's, that's in line with any specific technical jobs that they have to do in the practice.
Okay.
And then the doctor gets to look at all 5 of them, and whenever he has time, and say, you know what, Mike, I want to talk to these 3. I want to meet these 3.
Okay.
So it takes the onus off of the doctor to kind of weed through everybody, right? So we really pick the ones that we think are best based on, the time that we spent, with the doctor and the office staff. And then at that point, they do a meet and greet.
Okay.
And that's the final. Then the rest is history. Then we hire them and we get to the other, phase of all of this.
Yeah.
Which is the onboarding.
Tell me, I was just going to say, so what does the training component look like? So you decide, they choose the VA. How does that VA get to know that practice well enough to be able to take on all of the nuanced things that go along with it? Is there a handbook? Do you have a playbook? How does that work?
We have a playbook as to how we make sure when the person is in the office, they have their best chance of survival, right? So the first week or so is on us, training the people, getting them up to speed on certain things that they may not necessarily have, but they have. And then the doctor or the office will spend time, indoctrinating them into their individual culture.
Okay. At
that point, it's our job is once they're placed in there, we put them into what we call hypercare.
Okay.
Right. And that's usually about 30 days of client success and everybody being hyper focused on the account. Because what we know, and being in constant communication, because what we notice is that just because we spend a ton of time identifying all the duties, the metrics, and all sort of stuff, as they're in the office, people always identify, not always, but sometimes identify other things that they want to add to the mix, right? And also, even though you identify certain triage points, things seem to shift in the first week or so, right? As everybody kind of tends to work together. So we are there, client success is there to make sure that integration works out well. that's also the time, Carrie, that we really firm up our relationship with the office staff. We
Okay.
do our best in the beginning to do it, but really it's that first week or two that not only are we making sure that like everybody is working together and the duties are in fact the duties, but it's
Mhm.
where we really get to like, play well in the sandbox, so to speak. And
Okay.
it's a huge piece. In addition to hypercare, we really, like I said before, we make sure that if things change, we add them to the statement of work, right?
Okay.
If metrics change, basically, we change that. And
Okay.
then we have the KPIs are all agreed to. All
Okay.
right. At that point, we just do a kickoff call where we get everybody together for 15 minutes, say, okay, it's been 30 days. We're all doing great. Everybody's happy. These are
Mhm.
the things that we're agreeing to. Are we all cool? Yeah,
Mhm.
this is great, Mike. This is wonderful. Everybody's fine. They're good. And then it goes into ongoing maintenance, which is when client success is no longer day to day on it, right? Because it's working well.
Right.
But then the team leader who manages the office staff there, they handle it. Now, again, if anything breaks down, it goes directly back to client success.
Okay.
That gets back into a what's it called again? A hypercare period.
Got it.
But also that's kind of how we make sure that like when the people first get in there, that they get in at the best foot forward.
Yeah.
But like looking and then looking at KPIs, Carrie, we know immediately if something's going on, and we can knock it out before anybody really even notices it. So that's kind of like what I call the post hire integration, which is kind of the most important thing because it makes sure that they're able to work well within the client within the
Yeah.
office.
Yeah. Has there ever been a time when someone has brought on a VA and then realized, you know what, maybe this isn't the best fit for us? Are you then able to, I mean, how easy is it to swap out, or is it as difficult as, it might be with a full-time employee?
No, it's fairly easy because our you know our we, the staff that we put on most of our I'm sorry, the staff that we put on are all very good,
Okay.
and we have no problem really kind of moving things around. And honestly, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. It happens every so often, just
Okay.
because of like the real diligence that we all do to try to get the right person in the right seat.
Right.
Because like it's just such a heavy lift for the office. I mean, to like take someone on and then have them not do well.
Well,
It's
that's
like
right.
the one time I remember that we actually had to move somebody was, and again, there's probably other times I've what is it called, golden glasses or whatever, but
Mhm.
is it was an accent thing, and they didn't want to say anything,
Oh,
and I said, okay, it's okay, you made a valid sense, I understand, let's move forward, and it was perfect.
got it.
So we really, again, during that hypercare, when I talk about, it's really fostering that communication, because if the communication is great, the rest is really simple. It really is.
That makes perfect sense. Um, I have to
So,
say we have about a minute left, if I've got my math
oh
right.
oh my,
So is
okay.
there a slide is there a way someone can reach out to you if they have follow-up questions? I'm looking to see if you have a contact
uh,
name. You can tell
uh,
us there's a good
yeah, I
contact.
can. Yeah, it's my name is Mike Yablonowitz. I'm with BBC Global Services.
There you go.
It's yeah, Mike at bbcglobalservices.com, and I'll send my contact information. But one thing I want to bring up, just again, I would have brought up. It's important to know
Yeah,
is
please.
that we really spend. It's not just getting the people to you. The real question is, and you can take away the slides whenever. What is it? How is it that we get those people to you? And Jen, will be like 1 second. It's my technical difficulties. I'm not going to ruin your time from, but we really spend a lot of time on culture in our office to bring the right people to the stage. All right,
Yeah,
that's with our worldwide town halls, providing a lot of benefits in addition to salary that are key to getting the right people in the right seats.
yeah.
And last but not least, I'm getting taken off. 80% 80% of our staff comes from our existing referrals from existing staff. That
Okay,
puts people on third base. Carrie, thank you so much. Spruce, thank you so much for putting this on.
thank
And I hope I
you.
provided a little bit of knowledge related to this topic.
You did. And I have to say that this format where I got to play the part of Oprah was my favorite. So let's do that again sometime.
Better that way anyway. You are my favorite, you know that. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great day. And
thank you. Thank you. Good
Bye.
to have you. Bye, Mike. Hello, ladies. I just love that you are so punctual and our audience has been patient with us. We had a couple of hiccups, but Mike and I ended up having a really great dialogue. So I think we still got a lot of good content there. So glad that you are here. And I want to quickly just introduce our audience to the fact that you are Move Forward virtual assistants. I'm going to let the two of you introduce yourselves and then share whatever content you would like to share with us today.
Yeah, thanks, Carrie.
Okay, I'm gonna just bring myself in the background.
You're going into the darkness.
How about if I just go ahead and share now?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it.
All right. If the slides are up. All right.
There we go.
That showing? Yes.
Yeah, just yeah, in present mode. There you go.
Got it.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you for joining us here for our portion of VA-Palooza. When Carrie came to us with this idea, we were so excited and so honored to be invited. So thanks to Spruce for putting this together. What a fun event to talk about our favorite subject of all, HIPAA-compliant virtual assistants. Yeah, so we want to start with a little bit of an introduction. I'm Jennifer. My partner in crime here is Meredith, and we run Move Forward Virtual Assistants together as business partners and co-CEOs. We started our business partnership with actually another virtual assistant agency called Sparent, and we had the opportunity to move into the mental health space a little over a year ago. And we're so excited to have that opportunity because we really understand the ripple effect that we can have on mental health care by taking administrative burdens off the plates of very busy mental health practice owners, giving them more time to give people the mental health care that they need. So we're very much behind the scenes, but we find a lot of meaning in this work, as well as our team finds that meaning. And Meredith is going to maybe introduce a little bit about herself, but also she's going to introduce Bam Bam.
Yes. So yes, as Jen said, I'm Meredith Eaton, and Jen and I have been business partners and co-CEOs for years. And I don't think I would run a business without her by my side for sure. And we're just going to jump into it. I'm going to introduce Bam Bam. As you see, he is our Chief Inspiration Officer. He is our logo. And when we were picking the logo, we did a contest with our staff to give this logo a backstory. And the staff came up with this idea. They named him Bam Bam. He has a very rich life and backstory. So he's a part of everything we do. And we brought him into this presentation today so that we could play a little bit of a game. And whether you're watching live or you're watching us on recording, you can play this game. So Bam Bam is going to pop up throughout this presentation in some unexpected places, some expected places perhaps. And when we get to the end, you're going to have a QR code, which you can scan with your phone, and you'll find a quick form where if you tell us how many Bam Bams you found and what your biggest takeaway from this presentation was, then we are going to give you a prize. And it's probably going to be coffee. Gift certificate, because we love coffee. We run on caffeine, and so does Bam Bam, because he never stops. He is on all the time. And it's just a way to sort of have some fun, give you something to look for in the slides, and because why not? Because we like to do things that are fun while we work.
Absolutely. Thanks for that. Thanks for introducing Bam Bam. We do have an agenda today. We are going to be talking about the benefits and upsides of hiring a HIPAA certified mental health virtual assistant. We are going to talk about how you can achieve stability while working with virtual assistants as your administrative support team, the benefit of hiring independent contractors versus employees, why agency support specifically makes sense over going it alone. And another one of our favorite topics is communication and how to employ communication so that you can have a successful relationship with your virtual support team.
So first, just diving in on why a mental health VA. And if you saw the previous presentations, then we talked a lot about why a VA in general. So we're just going to dive right in and talk about specifically a mental health VA. So the first thing, of course, is that all of the VAs should be HIPAA certified. And that's going to reduce your risk of breaches, of problems. And it happens in a couple ways. The VA knows what to do when they are doing work, when they're in your database doing certain things. But also we've had instances where our VA can catch something that maybe the clinician is doing that's not as HIPAA approved as would be advisable. So we work together in that sense. We have a HIPAA compliance officer on staff. One of our VAs also carries that role so that we are constantly keeping our staff up to date, making sure their certificates are up to date, and making sure, any new information systems, that kind of thing is going on. So chances are we know a little bit more even than the clinicians do, because we're always looking for that information. So that is just another benefit that you have. So also working with people who've worked in the mental health field, we have a very specialized amount of knowledge, which is going to translate to a higher degree of professionalism. So if we're doing intake calls, answering phones, responding to emails, they know the language, they know the sort of standards and what people are expecting to hear. Also familiarity with nuances of behavioral health. And I think something that really doesn't get talked about very much is if the people who answer the phones for mental health practices, it's a little different potentially than answering the phone for like a car dealership or something. That might be some unexpected things that come up on the phone or heightened emotions. And because all your mental health VAs have worked in the field in some capacity, they're ready for it. And they can handle it with professionalism, with grace. And of course, experience with terminology, intake, scheduling, insurance, billing, systems, EHRs, all that stuff that goes with being familiar with the industry. Anything you want to add, Jen?
Oh, Meredith, you did such a great job. I think you made some great points. Obviously, we made these slides together, so no surprises. I think, the HIPAA certification and HIPAA compliance is something that is so important and that we take great care with. We also provide our team with their own equipment, so laptops and cell phones that are used solely and specifically for this work. So I think one thing that we find is very important is that, it's our responsibility to keep our clients safe from HIPAA violations. And that also keeps, us safe as well. So I think you made, some great points, and you're right, like having the familiarity with the nuances of this work comes into play for us on a daily basis. When you're working in the mental health field, as you mentioned, Meredith, we often have people on the other end of the phone that aren't having their best day or even their best year. Sometimes we deal with clients that are in crisis, and being able to handle that with care and compassion and maintain professional boundaries is something that I feel is a skill that is not found in a non-specialized VA scenario. So,
for sure.
Yeah. So I always love case studies because for me, it helps visualize things a little bit better, but also relate to the problems at hand. I have the privilege of talking to practice owners every day, and I hear words like, I'm buried, I'm overwhelmed, I'm stressed out, I'm burned out. I don't have a life anymore outside of my practice. And so this case study, I will call this person Darla. The names are changed to protect the innocent. She came to us as a solo practice owner. I always say this is a good problem to have. Her practice has grown pretty quickly, but so did her working hours. So did the stress that she was carrying from all the administrative burdens that sort of came along for the ride. And we see this a lot. So she was so ashamed, and used that word shame herself, because she had just stopped returning calls. She was just letting her voicemail box fill up, because by the time she was able to return calls, it was days later. And she knew that those people had, one, they most likely moved on, and two, she just, couldn't face getting them on the other end of the phone, knowing that she was getting back to them later than she would want to. And she considered herself a very professional, caring, nurturing clinician, and that scenario did not represent her. And so she was full of shame. She was behind on other things. She was behind on her notes. And she just felt like her professionalism and the clinician she wanted to be and the practice she wanted to run, all of that was just being degraded. On top of that, she was, answering when she was on the phone, it was with current clients, and she was just really unable to enforce any sort of client boundaries. They were texting her at all hours, showing up late to appointments, rescheduling too many times, all sorts of things. She was behind on updating credit cards and billing. So she was losing out on revenue by the virtue of all of these things going on. And she was burned out and just losing the love of her practice. So unfortunately, it's not an unusual situation, but it is a solvable situation. So she was at her wit's end, but we did match her with an experienced mental health VA who put a layer of support between her and her clients, both existing and potential. And so that VA was able to act as a gatekeeper and also a boundary guard. So she just took over her client communication, intake calls, scheduling, and she was able to enforce her policies when it came to communication, when it came to cancellation policies and late fees. The VA was able to handle all of that for her. And what happened is, her practice continued to grow because she was able to put more sessions on her calendar. So, relieving some of that financial stress, which is, always important. She recaptured that feeling of professionalism, and she was able to sort of step into her role as practice owner and deliver the care that she always wanted to deliver. And she also had more of a life outside of her practice. We're often tasked with taking things off practice owners' plates, and we often advise them that they should be very intentional about how they spend their recaptured time. And they don't necessarily have to take that regained time and spend it on work. It's okay if you, go to a concert or go on vacation or just, have more time with your family. Those things are all very valid ways to spend your time. And more, importantly, she felt that she was back in control of her business and her practice. And I love that she felt that, because some of the objections we hear to delegating to a VA is that practice owners feel like they're going to lose control of their practice. And they will. You are going to lose a little bit of control, but more importantly, I think you're going to capture and be able to see the potential of your practice when you are able to delegate those things to a support team.
All right. So another quick case study, just because like Jen said, we love case studies. Nothing makes the case better than a case study. So this is one of a growing practice where the problem was they had no documented systems or policies, no set operations, terrible response times. Their EHR was not serving their needs. They didn't like their billing service, and they had a lot of lost or uncollected revenue. So just sort of like in full chaos. Very, very busy, very big practice. And they're seeing lots of patients, but all the background stuff was not working out. So first, we started off with them offering some operational consulting services, which we provide, and it's more of a project-based service, higher level. So we went in and started setting up their policies. We created their SOPs. We created practice guides, that kind of stuff. We gave them a VA that was dedicated to handling their intake and their scheduling. So getting all of their, books filled and making sure the paperwork was there. The consulting services also navigated an EHR conversion to a much more dynamic system that was going to serve their needs better. And then we also signed them up for our billing services and scheduling. And so that's, we signed them up for the billing services to take away from their unhappy company. And they also get a scheduling team. So this is a practice that has multiple VAs, which we do for certain larger practices or practices that just have so much business going on. They may end up with 2 or 3 or sometimes 4 different VAs working together on a team to serve all of their needs. And so what are the outcomes? We fixed everything, and they are living their best life now. So we increased response times. We got everything much more efficient for onboarding new clients, also for onboarding new clinicians, for all their HR stuff, so much easier. And so basically, the practice owner who came to us was just like, all I want to do is treat patients. That's it. I don't want any of this other stuff, but I'm stuck being the practice owner. And so I have to do the things, but I want to do the things. So we made it all just automatic, took it off as much off his plate as possible. And now they're happy. They're living a stress-free life with their team of VAs. So that's probably one of our favorite stories. It's like a really fun practice that just let us do all of the things. So,
Yeah,
all right, moving on, Jen.
Yeah. So I think, we have to talk about support stability. Sometimes we have clients that are coming to us because they've gone through several VAs for various reasons. Maybe they've been working with freelance VAs and independent contracting VAs outside of an agency model. So when they find a better opportunity, they move on. It's very disruptive to the practice, and it's also costly because then you have to invest time and resources in training in the next hire. Sometimes finding the right fit for your practice can be challenging. We're in a hiring environment where people do change out of jobs, as they change their, almost as fast as they change their underwear, they say. But so what can we do? What can you do as a practice, and what can we do as an agency maybe to help you increase the stability within your practice so that admin support is continuous, not just in its coverage, but in its quality. So things that we recommend are always fair pay. That's something that ethically and in our core values, we feel really strongly about. I always think if people are paid well, they're less likely to leave. Hiring a reputable agency, if you go that route, all of the panelists that were here today, that's a great start there. Great communication, and that's from all the parties, both the practice owner, the VA, and if you're using an agency, you need great communication from your agency as well. Feedback. VAs love feedback. They thrive on feedback. They want to know what they're doing well, but they also want to know how they can improve. So we always advise our clients that don't let the little things go. You know, if something's not done quite right, or you wish the email had been worded a slightly differently, point that out. You know, you're not going to hurt anybody's feelings. Your virtual assistant wants to do a good job for you. We always use the framework of I like, I wish, what if we tried for feedback, so that we're telling people what we want them to keep doing. You say, I wish, so that you give them the power to grant your wish, to do something differently. You're all on the same team working towards a common goal. And then what if we tried is, again, collaborative, not confrontational. And again, it communicates that we're all on the same team. That's how we approach our relationship with the practices that we support. Clear expectations, always helpful in terms of getting the outcomes that you want. And SOPs, otherwise known as standard operating procedures, something that we lean on really heavily internally at Move Forward Virtual Assistants. We require standard operating procedures from all of the practices we support. Getting somebody on your administrative support team definitely puts a sense of urgency into documenting the systems and operations in your practice. We lean on them because we cross-train in the background, and we treat them as a living document. And part of our responsibility is, once we take over a responsibility in a practice, then we also take over the responsibility of keeping those standard operating procedures up to date.
And so just quickly to sort of talk about the MFVA way, which is how we manage all of these things and keep a stable base. So all of our VAs are employees, not contractors. They all work a salaried 30-hour week. 30 hours for us is full time, because we strongly believe in a culture of work-life integration, which is just another way that we make working work for our VAs, so they're less likely to leave. We offer full benefits, we offer bonuses, room for advancement, and 4 weeks of PTO plus 11 paid holidays. And that creates a very happy, very stable team. We cross-train, as Jen mentioned. We have backup VAs for when the primary VAs are making use of their PTO or have an emergency and they can't be out. There's someone there who's trained and ready to step in, so the client sees no dip in service. And that translates into very happy clients. Because they have low VA turnover, we create the SOPs and we do the cross-training so that there is this continual support, but also they have those SOPs themselves as well. So should they ever outgrow us, or they ever have a reason to move on, they're taking those tools with them. Our VAs do twice weekly status check-ins, Mondays and Fridays, to sort of check in, hey, this is what I'm working on this week. This is how many hours, is left in your subscription. And then on Friday, this is what I did. And that gives the opportunity for a very easy way for the client to check in, say, oh, I didn't, whatever, make adjustments. We also have proactive communication. We encourage our VAs, and we also have team leads, which is sort of a layer in between the VA and us as the owners, who will interface with the client, will help out if there is an issue, if there is any kind of problem in the VA service, or if the client wants to change their tasking or expand their services, whatever it is, the team lead can come in and be part of that conversation. Also in a total emergency, sometimes there's someone is out unexpectedly, and maybe their backup VA is also on vacation that day. So the team lead is ready and able to step in that case and fill the gap until the third backup person is able to have their schedule adjusted and be brought in. And also when it comes to communication and giving feedback, sometimes it can be uncomfortable for the clients, for the therapists to give feedback directly to the VAs. So in that case, they can give it to the team lead, and the team lead will address it and pass it on to the VA. We have a very careful VA selection process in that we do sort of like Carrie was talking about with the previous presenter, that it's a little bit like a matching, a little bit like a dating game where we look at the needs and the qualification or the tasking for the client, but also the personality, the culture of the office, those sorts of things. And we make sure we're matching with a really good fit from our VA pool. And then we provide a lot of internal training. You know, that most obvious, of course, is the HIPAA trainings that we do and the constant reinforcement of that. Every month there is reminders and information going out from our HIPAA compliance officer, but also we provide training on new software that comes out, communication, all kinds of stuff. Basically, if we can think of a training, we're going to give it to our VAs.
Absolutely. And just a quick reminder, if you have any questions, please use the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen and pop them in there, and we will have time to address any questions towards the end. We would love to answer anything that you have for us. We thought we'd take a little bit of time to talk about the difference between hiring an independent contractor versus an employee on your support team, kind of what is the difference, and you know, pros and cons of both scenarios. So an independent contractor is somebody that is essentially working for themselves. And so they have a lot of freedom and agency over how they do the work, and you don't have a lot of control over when and how they do work for you. You don't have any payroll taxes, and that can be at a complexity to your practice that you're not ready for, or that you just don't want to deal with. You do not have HR headaches with independent contractors because you don't need HR. You're not responsible for paying benefits with an independent contractor. The Internal Revenue Service has a very clear definition of independent contractor versus employee. And so you don't want to start treating your independent contractors like employees, or you could be responsible for back taxes. The benefit, I think, of another benefit of agency support is you sort of get all the good parts of working with an independent contractor without any of the negatives, because they're employees of ours. And so we're able to guide them in the support that they deliver to our clients. So I think it's just such a nice middle ground between those two things, to be able to have reliable support that come to the table already trained and work a certain number of hours under our umbrella.
Absolutely. And, you know, one of the questions we get from existing clients and potential clients is this question of like, why wouldn't I just hire someone myself? You know, we're going to pay you, and then like they work for you. And all of these reasons are part of that, because if you did hire someone yourself directly, you have to do all the payroll taxes, the headaches, you know, you have to make sure they're happy and they're going to stay and all of those things, which is a lot. That's what you forget. And it's a lot. So if that's not where you know, you want to spend your time, then working with an agency and having the, like Jen said, the benefits of the employees without the headaches of the employees might make a lot of sense. The other alternative, if you don't want to go through an agency, you can just hire an independent contracted VA directly yourself, you know, just go out and find them. And in that case, you just have to be careful about the way that you manage their time. And, you know, they are literally an independent contractor at that point. And so there are some rules about how to handle them. So it can be kind of hard to navigate. And that is often one of the things that Jen spends a lot of time talking about on discovery calls, of just people not sure what's the right move. And so we're always happy to answer those questions and walk you through it.
Yeah, so, oh, is this your slide, Meredith? I'm stepping all over it. I'm so sorry.
No, I think I just talked all over
that's
my slide.
Okay, all right. Well, let's talk about hiring a virtual assistant versus somebody in-house that's sitting in your, you know, office with you. One thing that I love about virtual assistant support, and I'm coming at it through the lens of being a business owner for many years of my life. My first business, I'm going to age myself, but the internet wasn't even around, and certainly virtual assistants did not exist. And looking back, oh my gosh, that would have been such a great help. But what I love about hiring a virtual assistant is that you really do get custom fit support. You're only paying for the time that they're working for you. And we monitor that through a mainstream time tracking app called Clockify. We give you a link. You have real-time insight into exactly how your virtual assistant is spending their time and when. Transparency is one of our core values, so that plays into that. But you're not paying for somebody to sit around waiting for the phone to ring, or just, you know, filling full-time hours, whether or not there's work to be done or not. You really only are paying for productive time. So I think that's a real game changer. You also have, at least with an agency, you have access to a larger talent pool. Well, and in general, with the virtual assistant, you have access to a larger talent pool because you're not limited by geography. So you can hire outside of the area in which you live. And again, with the job market being what it is, it's really nice to expand your potential applicant pool. You don't need office space or equipment expense, right? So, you know, for us, we provide the equipment for our employees, and we instruct them how to set up their home office so that it's professional, quiet, and private. Flexible hours. So some of our clients need a certain amount of hours during like a busy season, and then they might need to reduce their subscription hours during their slower times of the year. So our support can expand and contract with their needs. And again, not responsible for those payroll taxes. You know, we do that on our end. We pay payroll taxes, and we have an HR team, but so you can benefit from the fact that we take on that complexity for you.
Sorry, you're
jumping around.
So why work with a VA agency? Obviously we're biased. We think it is definitely the best choice. But you're going to benefit from collective experience, and this is specifically working with an agency versus just an independent VA. So we have Slack that all of our VAs are on, and we have a channel specifically for asking each other questions. And so there'll be anything from, hey, is, you know, this EHR running slow for everybody, or is it just me, all the way up to, has anyone ever encountered this problem with this insurance company, and how do I get around it? And we always see, you know, people popping and saying, oh, I've done this. Oh, here's a secret number I got from this other client, like all that kind of stuff. So it's just a wealth of knowledge that they can pull from. We have a broad talent pool so that we can be sure we're going to find the exact right person to match to your practice in terms of, as I mentioned before, talent and personality, but also that we have backups. If we have to build a team of people to meet all of your needs, we have everything we need to pull from. Everyone is pre-vetted and trained through previous work. Everyone we hire has worked in the field of mental health or medicine in some capacity. And also we train them ourselves when they are onboarded into the MFVA way, but also just general things about mental health virtual assistants so that everyone's on the same page. Again, we have backup support, and we provide them, as we've mentioned before, all the HR support, the salary, the benefits, the making sure they like their jobs and they stay in the jobs, all the stability, all of that kind of stuff is all on us. As one clinician said to me, she finds it a relief that she doesn't have to worry that they love their job, that's for us to worry about. She just worries about the tasks that she's giving them. And that for her is a huge relief.
Oh, another case study, fun. All right, this one is actually maybe our most recent case study. We had a fairly, I say a medium-sized group practice come to us, and they were just buried in a backlog of billing. So they were a bit desperate to sort of fix the cash flow problem that was happening as a result. There was a concern about making payroll. I mean, this was, you know, a huge problem. So we brought in a small but mighty team of mental health billing experts. We have a great mental health billing team, and we just started digging in and investing time in cleaning up the the backlog of insurance billing. And within the first month, the practice owner contacted us to let us know that she was on the way to the bank to deposit almost $40,000 of insurance claims checks into her bank account. And her stress, as you can imagine, was going way down with that deposit. We were also able to clean up her EHR, correct and update client information, and get things moving smoothly and consistently moving forward. So, the backlog was one thing, but then we have to make sure that her billing systems are in place so that we don't have a repeat of this situation and her cash flow remains consistent with the volume of her practice. So that was a big win for our team and so rewarding for us to hear that.
Mm-hmm. So another case study, this is overwhelmed group practice owner who had too many hats, which again, we hear this all the time. So the problem was she was working late nights and weekends. She had really poor response time. She had a lot of lost revenue because she wasn't getting back to people. She wasn't getting all the insurance done. And then she had no time for business development, which it's great to be busy, but you never know when that is going to run out. So as a business owner, you have to constantly be, thinking about the future and doing business development. So she wasn't able to do that. She wasn't able to keep up. So we gave her an experienced intake and scheduling VA who was able to improve the response time on those calls, on the emails, to streamline the intake procedures so that the clinician could just show up to the sessions, do what is her zone of genius, which is therapy, and then be done and go home. And so she didn't have to work nights and weekends to try to catch up on all of the admin work, which is something that we hear a lot of practice owners talking about. As a result, so she had a full calendar. Her practice revenue doubled in the first few months, as you can imagine, because she now had a full calendar. She had time for training and mentoring and onboarding new clinicians, which was super important to her. She wanted to grow this really intentional practice that had a very strong culture. And so now she had the time to attend to that. It improved the client pre-care session. There was no more confusion about missing paperwork or whether it was online or in person, and all that kind of stuff was just smooth and handled. So the clients had a much less stressful experience, and they had a much easier onboarding process into their therapy. And of course, the practice owner just had finally time for a life outside of her practice. She was able to, leave work at a normal time, not work weekends. And as a result, she was refreshed, she wasn't facing burnout, and she was able to show up for her clients and her clinicians so much better and just really be the full clinician, the full therapist that she wanted to be.
All right, we promised to talk about proactive communication standards, so here we are. We believe, this is not a proven statistic, this is our personal statistic, but we believe, it is our opinion, that 99% of all problems are a symptom of poor communication. And that's world problems, not just in the mental health field, but in our world, this is where we're dealing with mental health administrative support communication surrounding that. So one thing that you need to do as a practice owner leading a support team is you really should establish your communication protocols up front. How often do you like to communicate? On what platform? Do you prefer email? Do you prefer text? Do you prefer phone calls? How often are you going to meet to make sure that everybody is on the same page? I think getting those communication protocols established up front is really, really important. I already mentioned this, but use the I like, I wish, what if we tried framework for feedback. And finally, get it out of your head. When we work with practice owners who are delegating their admin for the first time, they often tell me, I can't imagine how anybody is going to do this. And the reason they can't imagine it is because they keep all the details in their head because they've been doing it for so long, they've never had to write it down for themselves. So the reason they have a hard time imagining delegating or handing it off is because they have a hard time imagining how they're going to communicate what needs to be done. So the first thing we need to do is get it out of your head, document everything that you're handing off into standard operating procedures. And I will say standard operating procedures sound a lot more complicated than they are. Literally, you can do this on a Google Doc, and it's just step by step by step, amazingly detailed instructions. So granularly detailed. That's all it is. We don't have to overcomplicate it. You don't have to Google for templates. Just put it down in a Google Doc. Take it from there.
So we've got a couple of minutes. We will switch to Q&A, and we will just throw this up on the screen while we're doing the Q&A so that if anyone wants to play the game.
I love it, ladies. I was playing the game, but I don't want to give away how many Bam Bams I counted.
We hid them really carefully and hopefully playfully. So I'll be interested to see if anybody gets the exact number.
It's so great. I mean, look at folks. There's an earring. She's wearing a Bam Bam on her earring. I love it.
Yes, she is.
I went through this one kind of fast, so I'll put this here.
Oh my gosh, look at those. Oh, people, you've got to play this game.
Oh my gosh.
We did have a couple of questions.
Yeah, I see that.
I'd love to throw your way. One question came in from Adrian. So do people clock their hours when they make or answer calls only?
Yeah, so not necessarily, because rarely are we only handling phone calls. So they clock in, the VA team clocks in whenever they are working for your practice. So if they're, having a Zoom meeting with you, that's billable time. So they'll clock in for that. If they're responding to emails, anything that they are doing to support your practice, that's time where they'll be clocking in. But as soon as they're done, they're going to clock out.
Okay.
I hope that answers it.
Yeah, I think so. If not, please, Adrian, drop in a follow-up question.
Yeah.
Here's something from Tara. I have a dual mental health / primary care practice.
Oh, wow.
Is this something that you guys work with?
Well, that's a first that's come across our desk, so a virtual desk, so to speak, but we really do stay in our lane of mental health. We haven't expanded into just healthcare in general. So it allows us to really provide that specialized support that we know so well.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Perfect. This is an interesting one and something that I frankly would have a question about as well. How do I trust someone with my practice? How do you do that?
Yeah, it's hard for us. We really respect the process that a practice owner has to go through. We have to earn that trust. So for us, we slow down our onboarding procedures in order to help move this trust process along. So for us, we do a needs assessment with every client before, or as the first stage, I should say, of our onboarding, where we take time to get to know them as practice owners, to get to know the spirit and culture of their practice. And we talk about things like personality traits, core values, the cadence of their practice, pet peeves. And the reason we take that time to do that is first we respect and honor the individuality of our practices that we support and the practice owners. But we also respect the individuality of our team. So we think getting a great holistic fit is the first step of getting that trust process going. The other thing is that, you are working with an agency. We do have a reputation. We have done all of the pre-vetting, and that is also a slow process. We do multiple interviews with our potential applicants. We check references thoroughly. It's not just a phone call to verify employment. They also work internally for us before they work independently with a client in their practice. So they're pretty tried and tested before they are out in the field. And then other than that, there are other things you can do to protect yourself, right? Use password managers, control the administrative permissions that you allow within the platforms that you use to support your practice. Go ahead, Meredith.
I'll just jump in there and add that there's the emotional fear too, like the literal being protected, but also it's just like really scary to let go of parts of your practice. And so we consider the onboarding period for the clients to be anywhere from 30 to 90 days. And we have this process where we check in frequently. Our team leads check in. We set expectations every week of what they can expect in terms of the level of involvement of the VA, what they can pass off, and how to judge. And a lot of that is just like, how do you know they're doing a good job? And that's usually the fear, right? It's just like, I just hand it off and walk away, like, and then I find out everything's a mess, like in a month. And that's not what we do. So we sort of require the clinician to be involved in that process. So we're making sure that the VA is learning to trust the clinician, and the clinician is learning to trust their VA. And we initiate and we chaperone that process until we're sure everyone is happy and everyone was good. And then at any time they can contact us or their team lead if they have any questions or problems.
That's perfect. I love it. I know that we're right at 11:15. We have a second before Megan joins us. What's the best way for people to reach out and contact you? For folks who joined late, this is Move Forward Virtual Assistants. We have Jennifer and Meredith with us today covering incredible content. Thank you, gals. And I love the game. I was engaged the entire time. How can people reach you?
Yeah, the easiest way is probably go to our website. It's Move Forward Virtual Assistants, plural.com. You can also reach out to me at Jennifer at moveforwardvirtualassistants.com. And we're at Move Forward VAs on social media channels.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, thank you both so much for joining. Again, great content. I learned a lot. I'm sure our audience did as well. And I'm so glad that you were here with us today.
Thank you so much for having us. Thank you, everyone in the audience. And we'll let Megan take it away. Thank you so much.
All right, gals. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye. Okay. Well, now we have Megan McDonald with us. And Megan, feel free to unmute yourself when you're ready and throw your video on for the audience. There you are. Hello. Megan,
hello, everybody.
Is joining us from SilverLeaf today. And I know we have some exciting content in store. I'm going to let you introduce yourself and then just get right to it.
Yes, of course. I am just making sure that my PowerPoint is up and ready to present with you guys. Sharing on two screens is kind of new to me, so I am just making sure that I have everything perfect for you guys by the time I start it. Yeah. And Carrie, if there is any trouble with me getting this to work, please help me figure out how you guys did it the last time.
100%. You know, I find the easiest way is just at the bottom there. If you click share screen, and then you can either just click then on the tab that has your PowerPoint, or if you have it as slides, either way, you just choose what you want to share.
Okay.
Tell me, I think we're almost there.
I think this is, can you see my screen?
There it is, girl. It
okay, perfect.
Great.
All right, I have my script up on the other screen, so let's hope this works smoothly. Hello, everybody. I hope you're doing well. My name's Megan. I'm one of the co-owners of SilverLeaf Practice Management Solutions. We are a woman-owned and family-run company approaching our 4th year in business. I'm excited to be here discussing VMR services with you, or just virtual assistants altogether. And throughout our time today, we'll uncover the immense potential that a VA holds in enhancing your business, lifting stress off your shoulders, and creating a positive first impression with your patients. Our first topic of discussion is sourcing the right virtual assistant. We'll explore the key factors to consider when searching for a VA who aligns with your business needs and goals, ensuring a successful partnership. Next, we'll delve into the contractor versus employee debate. Understanding the distinctions between hiring a VA as a contractor or an employee is crucial for compliance, cost effectiveness, and maintaining the right level of control within your organization. One popular model gaining traction is the pay for what you use approach. We'll explore how this model works and the benefit it brings, including cost savings, scalability, and flexibility, enabling you to pay only for the services you require. Lastly, we'll discuss how virtual receptionist services can lighten your administrative workload. We'll explore how these services can handle tasks such as call answering, appointment scheduling, message taking, and more, freeing up your time to focus on more core business activities. Sourcing the right virtual assistant in your private practice can bring numerous benefits. The most important benefit being freeing up your own time to focus on your core responsibilities, such as patient care, networking, collaborating, continuing your education, and growing your practice. Your time is very valuable. So allow someone else to manage your calendar, screen patients, and follow them through the onboarding process. Handle clinical aspects like prior authorizations and medication refill requests, and so much more. The more tasks you can delegate to your VA, the less you feel you need to take on yourself, and the more you can focus on building your business. You can rely on your VA to enhance the patient's experience by providing quick and convenient access to healthcare information regarding things like medications and general health concerns. A VA can ensure that important messages are relayed promptly, non-urgent inquiries are handled appropriately, and patients receive the care they need without unnecessary delays. Additionally, a VA can assist with appointment scheduling, orchestrating paperwork, sending timely reminders, ensuring patients are well prepared for their appointments, which in turn reduces the likelihood of missed or forgotten appointments. This accessibility promotes a sense of empowerment or self-sufficiency and enables patients to actively manage their own healthcare. There's certainly no shortage of ways a virtual assistant can help you reclaim control over your day by seamlessly integrating with a healthcare provider system. A VA can effectively organize a healthcare practice in several ways. They would essentially serve as a digital repository for all patient-related data, ensuring that patient information is both easily accessible and updated, keeping everyone involved in the patient care on the same page. VAs often come with features that help streamline administrative tasks like automating appointment scheduling, managing those patient check-ins, and facilitating the processing of all of those medical forms and documents, thus reducing the need for manual paperwork, minimizing errors, and overall enhancing efficiency. Ultimately, this leads to improved processes, better coordination of care, and higher patient satisfaction. From fielding all aspects of communication like faxes, portal messages, calls, emails, handling things like PAs, medical record requests, a VA has the skills to maintain all patient-related facets of your practice properly and effectively. Finding the right VA is key. So these are sort of my suggestions on looking for someone that's going to fit your practice. Look for someone with relevant experience, especially within your scope of practice. A good question to ask yourself is, what kind of expertise do I need from my VA? I recommend looking for someone with a good understanding of medical terminology, someone who is well-versed in HIPAA regulations and understands the importance of patient confidentiality, someone with excellent communication skills who's able to interact professionally and empathetically with patients as well. Your patients should feel welcomed. They should feel supported and cared for during their interactions with your VA. Look for someone who is highly organized, detail-oriented, as they will be responsible for juggling several tasks simultaneously. You definitely don't want anyone that just has their blinders on and can only focus on one task at a time. Someone relatively tech savvy and who can work with various software systems. You're not guaranteed to keep the same EMR throughout your company. You may change those systems at some point. You may find something that works better and is more efficient for you and your company. So you need someone who can adapt pretty quickly and work in any system kind of thrown their way. And then you really want to find someone with a friendly demeanor. They're the face of your company. They are constantly talking to your patients for you. I am so sorry. Your patients for you, other healthcare providers, referring providers in your area. So you want someone who's friendly and welcoming so that they're building that rapport in your community. To even further ensure that they fit well within your practice and provide top-notch support, make sure you're hiring someone with plenty of experience. Don't hesitate to call references and things like that on file. It's your company. You have every right to gain some insight into their performance and reliability. Hiring a VA versus an employee has several advantages for your business. These advantages include, but are certainly not limited to, reducing management responsibilities, decreasing your overhead costs, and granting you access to a pretty vast talent pool. As an employer, managing employees involves various responsibilities like training, supervision, performance evaluations. When hiring a VA, it's crucial to establish clear communication channels, set your expectations, and maintain regular check-ins to ensure a smooth working relationship. But overall, you're entrusting the administrative tasks to someone who is self-managed and experienced in their field. Hiring on a VA doesn't limit you to hiring someone in your locality. Instead, hiring a VA gives you access to highly skilled professionals from across the country or even globally who can bring diverse perspectives and expertise to your practice. VAs often possess a wide range of skills and expertise. You can find a VA with specialized skills like the ability to check insurance verifications, handle prior authorizations, medical record exchanging, someone who can provide prescription clarifications for both the pharmacy and for your patients, who can manage your front desk appropriately and have really great customer service experience. All of this ensuring that you have someone knowledgeable in all your specific areas of need, so you don't have to hire multiple employees to do one person's job. Employees generally have set working hours and may require additional supervision, reducing flexibility in terms of work arrangements. So VAs typically work remotely and can be hired on an as needed basis, if you will. This flexibility allows you to adjust their workload based on the demands of your practice. You can scale up or down as required without the constraints of a fixed employment contract. So when you're hiring employees, it's 20 hours a week, it's 40 hours a week. You may not have a caseload that requires someone to work 20 or 40 hours a week for you. So with a VA, you really can decide how much they're working every week. And if the week following slows down, you can decrease their hours. I always say set a maximum amount of hours that they are not to surpass, and make sure they stay within those time constraints. You also aren't met with various costs, including things like salary, benefits, office space, providing equipment to your admin assistant, and training expenses. You won't have those admin responsibilities like payroll and withholding taxes either. Virtual assistants are typically responsible for their own expenses, their own equipment, doing their own taxes, getting their own health insurance. None of those things fall back on your shoulders as the provider. It's essential to assess your practice's specific needs, your budget, and working preferences to determine whether hiring an employee or contractor best suits your requirements. One thing we like to mention when hiring a VA is to determine if they should be hired on as an employee or as a contractor. Please be careful of blurring lines and pay attention to the IRS guidelines on hiring. There are three main categories when determining a worker's status: behavioral control, financial control, and the relationship between the worker and the employee or the employer. Regarding behavioral control, if you want to control how your worker performs their job, including providing instructions, training, setting their specific work hours, that would suggest more of an employee situation than a contractor. If you control financial aspects of your worker's position, like reimbursement of expenses, provisioning of tools or equipment, or the opportunity to make a profit and loss, this again would indicate your worker is more an employee than a contractor. Your relationship with them is also considered. So factors such as the presence of a written contract, provisioning of employee benefits, and the permanency of the relationship are all taken into consideration to determine employee versus contractor. It's important to note that no single factor is decisive in determining the worker status. So while I just provided you with a general overview, IRS.gov can provide you with further information on the differences between a contractor and an employee. Know your employee laws in your state. They vary. And if you're in doubt, always get legal advice from a tax professional to ensure compliance with specific guidelines and regulations, or consult with a labor and employment lawyer. They can help you extensively as well. With an in-house employee, you face worrying about managing their schedule, keeping track of their hours, providing them benefits, and paying for a scheduled amount of hours per week. By hiring a VA on an as-needed basis, you only pay for the hours or tasks they actually work on. This can be more cost-effective, especially if your workload fluctuates. With a virtual assistant working as needed, you have the flexibility to utilize their services based on your specific requirements. Excuse me. This allows you to scale up or down depending on the workload and your project demands. If the workload increases and you can't financially justify delegating additional tasks to your VA, consider taking on one or more time-consuming tasks yourself until you have more financial freedom. One thing to consider, and something that my company typically recommends, is sending, and I know this is going to hurt for just a second, but I'll explain why, is sending incoming calls to voicemail. This allows your VA to sporadically check throughout the day for work that has come through. If you have someone waiting for live calls, meaning they are clocked in and waiting for something to come through, that typically means they are just clocking time in case something comes through. And that's not always financially feasible for everyone, especially in the first several months probably of your business opening and beginning to operate. You're not going to have a ton of money coming through in order for someone to just sit around waiting for work to come through. What if you don't have a call coming through frequently? You're just, again, paying for them to simply wait around. So I suggest letting work build up for a couple of hours, especially if your business is on the slower side. If you're letting work build up, it's guaranteeing that there will be work to be done the next time your VA clocks in. My company calls it clocking in, or clocking time in waves. So we come in the first couple of hours that you're open, clear out anything that may have come in the previous evening or earlier that morning before we got in. We may leave as soon as things get done in the inboxes or we've completed our daily duties. We clock out for a couple of hours and then we come back in around lunchtime. Do the same thing, clock out for a couple of hours and then visit again once more towards the end of your business day. This is ensuring by the time we're ready to clock back in, there is certainly going to be work for us to do. It's important to note that while there are several advantages to having a virtual assistant working on an as-needed basis, it may not be suitable for all situations. If you require ongoing support or consistent availability, an employee might be a better option, and that is totally okay. Many front office administrative duties are time-consuming and burdensome, pulling your attention away from providing quality care to your patients. Hire a VA to handle all of those front office things. Prior authorizations, like I mentioned before, those bog down providers all the time. Insurance verifications, you can be on hold for 45 minutes before you actually talk to someone, and that's just for one patient. Invoicing and collecting, keeping yourself organized on that is not always feasible when you're in clinic appointments all day long. So hire someone to take over these things for you. After you've been seeing patients all day, the last thing you want to do is have to go over to the admin side of things and clear them out yourself. I often hear that providers without administrative help are up all hours of the night trying to clear tasks and prep for their next business day. We'd like you to all have a better work-life balance. VAs are typically highly skilled in data entry, organization, and schedule management. They are accustomed to working remotely and can often adapt to new systems and technologies quickly. They are often skilled in using digital tools, making them efficient and effective in their tasks as well. This can lead to increased productivity, streamlined processes in your practice. When scheduling patients with clients, a VA can even ensure that your schedule remains organized and conflicts are avoided. They can send appointment reminders to clients, reducing the risk of no-shows. Find additional support in a VA who can monitor patients through the onboarding process, guaranteeing all paperwork is filled out properly and all documentation is in place before beginning your appointment. It doesn't just have to be paperwork either. It could be things like a PDMP check. Maybe you, if you're a prescribing provider, maybe you want to make sure that your patients aren't shopping for medications. Things like a PDMP report could be put into the chart before you see your patient. Or your VA, when they're onboarding this patient, notices they have a previous, maybe a PCP you would like to share records with, or maybe there's a therapist you would like to get in contact with. Your VA can automatically initiate a medical records transfer between the two practices for better coordination of care. They can assist with organizing and maintaining the client records, inputting data into your practice management software, and ensuring that all necessary information is accurate and up to date. This can save you time and effort in managing the paperwork and maintaining your client database. Not only that, but your VA can handle the financial responsibilities coming through as well. Many are trained in checking insurance eligibility. They know how to read the medical jargon and determine benefits. Allow them access to your fee schedule so they can properly invoice a patient who hasn't met their deductible or has a co-insurance. They're not only invoicing, but they're also sending payment reminders, handling patient concerns in regard to why their invoice may be high or why they owe what they owe. Your VA can remove you from the financial aspect because that starts to blur boundaries with your patients. If the provider is involved with trying to receive payment from their patient, it just kind of creates a weird relationship between the two of you. Allow someone else to take that off of your shoulders. To quickly recap, because I know I'm coming towards the end of my time and we're about ready for questions, I just kind of want to go over everything that we discussed. VAs can do all of these things that you see here on the screen. By employing a VMR, you can offer your patients round-the-clock support and engagement. The VA can assist you with answering frequently asked questions and provide reminders for upcoming appointments or payments due. This enhanced engagement leads to better patient satisfaction and loyalty, as well as builds an admirable reputation in your community. We all are, word of mouth. That's how we all are successful in our companies, as we do really well for one person and they let everybody else know that. So if you can have someone who's the face of your company that can build that reputation for you in your community, absolutely go with that. With administrative efficiency, a VR managing various administrative tasks, such as the patient registration that we talked about and insurance verifications, it'll reduce your administrative burden, increase your productivity, and allow you as the provider to focus on much more important matters. With streamlining appointment scheduling, they can efficiently handle all of your appointment scheduling, ensuring optimal utilization of your time. They can provide real-time availability, schedule appointments, and schedule automated reminders, again, reducing those no-show rates and improved overall patient flow. With seamless insurance verifications, they can, again, that's a really time-consuming task, but delegating that responsibility to a VA, you can ensure accurate and efficient insurance verifications, eliminating the risk of errors and minimizing claim denials. Efficient patient communication. Your VMR is facilitating effective communication with patients through various channels of communication, such as email, text messages, portals or secure messages, voice calls, all of those kind of things. They can send personalized messages regarding appointment reminders, test results, and other important notifications. And this improves patient engagement and reduces the chance of miscommunication as well. Cost savings. This is very cost effective for you. Hiring a VA can result in significant cost savings for your practice. By outsourcing certain administrative tasks to a VMR, you can avoid the expenses associated with hiring additional staff members. And moreover, the enhanced efficiency and reduced administrative workload can lead to increased revenue generation. Also, having your VA take over all of the front end sort of things frees up more time for you to see more patients if that is your goal. Adding on new patients, I know that's a concern with providers, is having the space to add on a new patient. Maybe if you can get rid of some of the administrative things that is, kind of bogging you down, you can hire some, or you can start to see more patients, open up your schedule. HIPAA compliance is a big deal, of course. So patient privacy and data security are crucial in the healthcare industry. A reliable VMR ensures compliance with HIPAA. So make sure that they have done all the training that they need. You have a certification on file. They offer secure data transmission and storage, ensuring patient information remains completely confidential and protected. Scalability and flexibility. A VMR solution can easily adapt to the changing needs and growth of your medical practice. As your practice expands or experiences seasonal fluctuations, a VMR can scale its services accordingly. The scalability ensures uninterrupted support and flexibility in managing patient interactions. By leveraging the capabilities of a VMR, you can optimize your practice operations, increase patient satisfaction, and focus on delivering high-quality care. That about wraps it up, you guys. Thank you so much for joining not only me, but everyone in this webinar today. I hope you found this session insightful and gained a better understanding of how a VA can transform your practice operations, relieve you of burdensome work, and enhance your patient experiences. For further information or to schedule a personalized consultation, and I still will remain for questions, please feel free to contact our team. Thank you once again, and we wish you success with embracing the advantages of hiring a VA into your practice, and good luck with everything.
I love it, Megan. That was so great. You covered a lot of great content.
Thanks, Carrie.
Absolutely. And we do have a couple questions that came in. And since we have time, I'm going to share them with you. So the first question that came in is, how does a VA integrate with existing electronic health record systems?
So we think that transparency is key. I think that is just the foundation of our company in general. You always want to have your VA use systems that you already have working in your company so that you are able to track what they're doing. And I don't mean on a daily basis. I hope that you have someone you trust enough that you're not having to follow every day, but you never want something being done in the background that you cannot get your eyes on. So make sure that whatever your VA is using system-wise, that it is what you are using. You are providing them logins into your EHR system and into whatever communication system you're using as well. It should be Spruce. Make sure they have access to those things so that you can perform audit logs and see what kind of work they're doing for you.
Okay, that's terrific. We just got another one, and this is interesting. So what kind of tasks beyond admin duties can a VA handle? Because I know you sort of touched on that, and folks want they want maybe what they perceive as too much, or they don't know upfront what they may want. Like, how does that evolve, and what can these folks actually handle?
Sure, yeah. It's really all going to be based on your comfort level and how trusting you are of the VA that you have, and how many tasks you actually allow to be delegated to them on a daily basis. That's always a struggle, I think, that we deal with here when providers come in. They're so used to being hands-on themselves that it's kind of really hard to let go and have someone else do these things. So it really is a balance of trying to find what makes you feel comfortable and what you can see is being done. Once you kind of notice that they're doing these things in the background, then that starts to make you a little more trusting and allows you to kind of let go of some more things. So honestly, all the big ticket items of your office, they can certainly do those things. But I mean, if you like prior authorizations, record exchanging, pharmacy clarification calls, things like that. But You can, I mean, it depends on the VA. Of course, these people are contractors. So it depends on also what they're willing to do for you as well. So if that is, hey, can you reschedule my doctor's appointment that I have tomorrow? I have a patient that needs to get in urgently. If you trust your VA to do those things for you, then absolutely see if that is something they're willing to do. Again, they're contractors, so they can say, and I hate to say this, but they can say that is outside of my scope of expertise and not something that I feel capable doing. So I think it's all just a balance that you're going to have to work through and really build that relationship with your VA. Even though they're not in person with you, they are as if they are your employee. It's as if they're your in-office staff. So whatever you would feel comfortable delegating to in-office people, you should be able to delegate to your VA as well.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. And I think in Mike's session, or maybe it was the session just before, it was a question came in, how do I trust a VA with my practice? And it's part of what you said about just, you have to let go at a certain point. You can't do it all yourself. Yeah. And I imagine that it probably comes in small steps. You start to get to know this person and they start to take things on and they do it well. And slowly but surely you become more and more trusting of that process.
Exactly. Yeah. So start small, have weekly meetings if you want to do that. Hey, can you just check in with me every Friday? Just tell me how the week went. What's been going on? Are there any causes for concern? If you just check in regularly, you should be being, caught up to date with what is going on in the practice, and slowly but surely you'll start to feel very comfortable with who you've hired. Obviously in the beginning, they're a new person to you. You don't know who they are. So falling back on those references, looking at their resume, calling those numbers. I think people shy away from calling references, but don't do that. This is your business. You have every right to call someone that person has worked for previously and make sure that they are good, efficient. But SilverLeaf kind of always stands on transparency and communication. We think that those two things are completely key in having a smooth working environment. So make sure that you guys are communicating with each other. Obviously use programs like Spruce to have inter-office communication, but even if it's just a text message or a phone call that you guys round your week off with, that's going to be helpful in kind of building that communication with you guys. Like I said, they are your team member. They are your staff member. So you have every right to be as informed or as included as you would like to be in your day-to-day practice.
Okay. Now, quick follow-up question.
Sure.
Do you check references or does your client check the references?
If you hire a company, so I would be the contractor and my VAs would be subcontractors. So if you are enlisting the help of a big organization to help you find someone, that organization should be checking references. So for example, when I am hiring on VAs or VMRs, we call them virtual medical receptionists here because we are a healthcare company. And I would assume most of you in this webinar are healthcare as well. I make sure I call all of my references, everyone that person has ever, worked with or said would give them a good recommendation. I want to talk to those people. Yeah. And obviously it's really hard, right, to tell if they've just put some information on a paper or if they have you calling a friend of theirs that, is just answering these questions. But there are background checks that you can run, see where their previous employment is, and call those people. It doesn't necessarily have to be placed in writing on their resume. Do a background check and see where they've worked before and do your own digging.
Yep, that is great advice. I love that. That sort of segues nicely into the next question, which is, should your VA be HIPAA certified? Is that important, or can they just sort of understand the general nuances of HIPAA?
No. It should be a requirement of yours if you are a healthcare provider. If you're not a healthcare provider, and they're just if you just a busy person and you need someone helping you out in your day-to-day, I wouldn't imagine they need HIPAA certification. But if you are a healthcare provider, it is absolutely a requirement for them to have that HIPAA certification. Your VAs or just staff members in general are going to be communicating with patients sometimes in non-HIPAA compliant ways, like regular text messaging or giving them sending them a voicemail, if they've tried to call them. It's really important that they know that they can't even say, hey, Brenda, this is Megan from this psychiatric office. That just saying the patient name alone is a HIPAA violation. The certification not only guarantees that they know what they can and cannot say when they're talking with patients on certain platforms, but it's also going to give them knowledge on what to do if there is a HIPAA breach of some sort. What steps do they need to take in informing the patient, and sometimes, depending on how big the breach is, also informing the public on what has happened. So absolutely, HIPAA certification should absolutely be a requirement.
Okay, that's great. Thank you for that, because I don't know if I necessarily knew that, and I'm guessing some
Well, and
folks-
that's a yearly thing too. So if your
Oh.
VA is with you for longer than a year, most of those certifications only last a year. So you want to make sure that they're having regular HIPAA training on file, and you've got the certification. It's kind of a way to CYA, if everyone knows what that means.
Yes, indeed. Okay, that's great advice. Here is a question now. Can my VA work fairly autonomously? I am very busy and don't have a ton of time to manage.
Yes, but also it depends on how much you're willing to let them do for you. So let's use screening patients as an example, okay? So a lot of providers will come to us and say, I want to screen my patients first, and only if I approve that patient coming on as a patient can you approve their appointment. That adds an additional step now into the onboarding process and requires the provider, every time a new patient comes through, to have to put their hands in the pot and give a yes or no answer. If you are able to give your VA guidelines on things that you don't want to accept. Maybe there are specialties. I work with a lot of mental health providers. So sometimes they, a provider might not want someone with an eating disorder because that is not a specialty they feel comfortable treating. And so if you can give your VA guidelines like hard stops in certain situations, then they are able to work pretty autonomously without needing to involve you in every process. We like to try to get the provider to a point here that you're really only being looped in with patient concerns, and really all you're doing in your day is seeing your clients, charting on your clients, and calling in their medications. We strive to get providers to a place where they feel comfortable allowing us to make these kind of decisions, like screening out patients and things like that we don't have to bring you in every time.
Okay, that's great.
So it's really a balance of how willing you are to put hard stops in certain situations so that your assistant can make those decisions for you. Like if a patient hasn't returned paperwork and they're supposed to reschedule that appointment at the 48-hour mark before the appointment, allow them to do that so that they don't have to say, hey, it's last minute now, we're trying to get this paperwork back. So yes, hard stops are going to help someone be able to work for you without bringing you into every scenario.
Okay, that's great. I love it. We have another question that just came in. Can we hire a nurse to be a VA?
You can. Also, keep in mind, though, if you're hiring a VA that is outside of the state that you are working in, make sure that that person either has a compact license and is able to work in that state with you, or if they do not have a compact license, make sure that they are not dishing out any medical advice at all to your patients. So if you're hiring a nurse, that's absolutely fine, but just make sure you're paying attention to what kind of license they have. And if it's not an appropriate license that matches up with your state, then they cannot perform duties as a nurse in your practice.
Okay, that's great. And hopefully people understand what you mean by compact, because I know a little bit, but ultimately it's such that you can practice beyond your own state lines. Yes.
Yes. Certain states in the US here are considered compact states, meaning you can work in a numerous amount of states, multiple states, but not every state is like that, you have to have that state's nursing license. So a compact state nursing license is really beneficial because they can work in multiple states across the country. But that's just something to be mindful of. Yes. So there's either just a specific state nursing license, or there's a compact nursing license that they have.
Okay, that's great. We have a couple minutes left. If anybody has any other questions, please drop them in now. Otherwise, I think you can see on the screen here how to get in touch with SilverLeaf. Just go with info@SilverLeaf PMS. They can also phone you, which is great. These slides will be made available to everyone who registered for this event. And just a reminder, I will also be sending out the link to this recording later today, so that if you missed something, or you want to revisit something, or you just couldn't join us for the entire 3 hours, you can dip in and out, and you can kind of go right to those areas of interest. It looks like we've covered the bulk of our questions. And Megan, I have to say, great presentation. I know, we've talked before. I love the resources. I love your vast, experience in this space. It's really eye-opening.
Thank you.
And you covered some great stuff today. Thank you for joining. I am so pleased you could be here. Folks know how to get in touch with you if they have questions that they think of after we hang up.
Yes, ma'am.
Give everybody 5 minutes back in their day, but this has been a tremendous event, and I'm very grateful to you, Megan, and our other speakers that joined us today. This was its first of its kind, our VA-Palooza, but now that we've done it, I like this format. Maybe we'll have to do something like this again.
It's fun. I like it a lot. And a correction on this slide, guys. I am so sorry. That email is info@silverleafpms.com. I guess I missed the .com part of that, so I do apologize.
No worries. I think I would have just inherently just dropped that right in, but now
you would think, but sometimes, I just feel the need to say it out loud.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Megan. And thank you to our audience for sticking with us. This has been a great half day. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.